Doing great.
Nice, man. Early morning on your side.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not too bad.
think we should. I think we should be running live.
All right.
And welcome to everybody who's in the show. Namaste. We've got Howard, Tom Rue. System Zoo. Oh, I didn't know if he was up for joining us. Toby Shinobi. I'll have to go and check my Telegram in a minute once we do our introduction. So we've got quite a it's quite a simple conversation. I noticed these words I used were like slightly a lot on the verbose side. But how do you explain it? The esoteric understanding of mystic wisdom limited by linguistic learning. Basically, the short way of saying that is that books mess up your ability to understand things because you're too busy learning things. You're either learning or you're understanding. And the people think they're the same thing, but are they really, right? Learning is something that happens spontaneously and automatically and naturally, where being taught is a restrictive form of learning. You know, you're learning what you're supposed to know, as opposed to touch that, it's hot. And I learned, ooh, ouch, don't touch that, it's hot. That's a natural organic form of learning. So we're talking about the different forms of learning and how beliefs inform our perception, not just our opinions, our perceptions. It's basing reality upon perception, right? So I think it's like a deep conversation. Anyway, we have with us our treasured guest, and TallTree is a researcher and a father and an early morning podcaster. He does his podcasts at 6 a.m. in the morning because that's how he rolls. And that's why he's always got his coffee in the morning on the podcast, because it's 6 a.m. on his side. So respect him for, saying hello to the world. And he's also he's devoted to his child and his partner. He's what we call an old school man, right? He's an all American man. Like I imagine him with a muscle car and a 9mm or a 45 or something strapped to his hip, and like children like climbing him like a tree, and he's like, digging a garden. But yeah, he researches spiritual philosophy and occult philosophies, as well as his martial arts, as well as, modern living. Like, how do we live in this world, right? He's now missioning on becoming more self-sufficient step by step, which is obviously a goal for everybody to move towards, so we can have clean food, clean water, things we don't get from the shops anymore. So without any further ado, welcome, dear brother TallTree. Welcome, brother. It's an honor to have you and say a few words about you. And big love, Chaos. Is Chaos in the room? Wow. Big Gaz, how you doing? Big bless. Everybody, hope you're all smiling.
Well, I'll just bring it up. I like to run the YouTube at the same time. Oh, there it is.
That's the echo.
So I can look at the comments.
Can't you see the comments in where you are?
In the StreamYard?
Yeah. Doesn't it show? Hold on.
No, it does. It does. I didn't realize I could do that.
If you run a YouTube in the background, just please mute the YouTube, because that's what the echo was earlier.
Yeah, it's muted. Yeah, there they are. Anyways. Yeah, so I was curious, what books you had in mind when you thought of this topic.
This is going to sound like a wow out there comment. I was just thinking of books
In general.
Yeah, the whole concept of writing.
Okay.
Like I'm learning here by default that when my toes get bitten, right, I have to pick up the cockatiel.
Okay.
It's like that's his like lift button. He's like, I know there's a button under this toenail. Let me lift this toenail. It's like, oh, it's not a shell, buddy. I can crack it like a shell. Watch, you know. So he has learned where the lift button is to get to the top floor, and I have learned, oh, that lift button's being touched. Now the whole problem with books, right? And I want to preface this like the idea of writing. Writing isn't just something that we did. Writing is something that was the first writing. I don't know if you know this. The very, very, very first writing was sigils. And you can track it back to cave art, right? Like a bushman wanting to catch an animal or looking for water or food would draw the food or the water and him getting the food and water. And then this became like more of an adept art. And then the water started being symbolized by a hieroglyphic, right? And later on, the hieroglyphic became a phonetic alphabetic letter. And then we have what we have today along the evolutional chain of language. So what does this really mean if we like really break it down? You know, what exactly are we, what are we getting out of this? So writing started as casting spells effectively. Yeah. That's why you have to spell when you write. That's why writing is effectively spelling. And so we have to spell words, and that's how we cast our spells, with words. And they started off with animals being drawn with a man with a spear catching the animal, hypothetically. And that is his way of imprinting onto the etheric plane and the physical world that I desire this animal. Great Spirit, bring this animal to me. It's a religious kind of a prayer of sorts. It's something done to the Great Spirit of I need sustenance, I need food. And then at some point it became more refined and it was hieroglyphics put into a context. And that context was essentially a spell. Then at later stages, they realized, well, we can actually code this with numbers and we can decode this according to the astronomy. And we can see that the code around us is present. So, you know what, we can count things and we can write down things we counted, like how many bushels of wheat will we need to survive the winter? Because there's a whole big group of us. It's hard to keep track of how many of us there are. We can count on a stone tablet and how many people, how many faces, how many bushels of wheat, how many days in our calendar. So this many days, this many faces, this many bushels of wheat. That's how much we need to put in our larder. You put so many bushels in one little storage canister. You need so many storage canisters to get through the winter. Common sense, right? So then we started counting and numbering. And so you can see how it started with sigils, effectively, which is what that cave art is. It's the beginnings of sigils, of graphic sigils, that then become hieroglyphic sigils, that then become, more phonetically based sigils, which is why when we go into the deepest mysticism and the mystic arts and the occult, we see that first was the word, and God used the word to create the world. Well, what is this? Well, the universe is created out of resonant vibrational fields, and we can interact with those resonant vibrational fields through sound. And we learned how to code certain sound frequencies that we can make with our mouths, certain patterns of sound that represent certain ideas. And with that, we could then connect with the fundamental forces of creation, because everything is vibration. So writing then became a code for vibrational frequencies, which is the sacred geometry that relates to the alphabet. So this is when we go back to the root of what writing is. So now we've fast-tracked to the modern time, right? The writing still is a spell. When you write down a set of words, and it's a belief and it's an idea that you have, you're spelling it out on a piece of paper so that the next person who reads it will believe it. most likely, if you've spelled it correctly, right? If your spell is powerful, you can convince other people of what the truth is. This is how religion started, right? This is why there was an embargo on writing with the Christian church, and why they had to control and own writing, because they wanted to make sure that the only spells that you got was their spells, which would condition your brain to believe their ideologies so that they could get your money, essentially. It was a Roman invention. The Greeks were geniuses. They realized that the greatest financial potential in the future was religion, and it was also a systemic web of control, that they could control the way people thought, even the way people behaved, right? And they could get these organizations that people would revere, and they would be able to control the people through these organizations by setting up priesthood castes. And so we can see, like, writing has always been in the domain of the religion. And if we go back into our own histories, it was the lords that were writing, right? And they would write secret spells and letters to each other that they could use to manipulate the populace who couldn't read the writing. And at some point, everybody got induced to learning to write, because it was decided that they were ready. They had a consolidation of power. And when the Christian church had a powerful consolidation of power, it was decided it would be better to teach everybody to read, because they could manipulate people more effectively in that way. So why just get access to people on a Sunday afternoon in your sermon when you can be in their home every day in the form of a book that they're going to read daily? So does this make sense to you? Writing is a lot more than what it seems to be.
I want to go back to the the Bushman writing, doing his little pictures, and how explicitly, like what, okay, what, like, I'm just curious, like, what is he working with? Like he sees his prey that he wants to, you know, kill for food. And he's got his little war band of bros that he's probably hunting with. And they go get the animal, using their hunting techniques. But there's also something, and maybe it's not him specifically, but there's somebody there who's compelled to, go into the cave, you know, or etch on a rock, symbols and things like that. And if what you're saying, it's not just it's not just a artistic expression of daily life, but it's like a like you said, it's like a sigil intended to bring him or the tribe like more of the valuable resource. And so they're thinking it, they're communicating to each other what needs to happen, and then they go out and they perform the action of a successful hunt, and then they consume it, and then they repeat it. And they might, they sit around the fire and they're like, oh yeah, Bob, threw the spear, and Joey loosed the arrow, and Frank got ran over. He's useless, and but then there's this extra step of like, going into the cave and doing the little drawings, or etching it into the rock, and so it's like what's going on? What is going on with the sigil? Like it seems like it lasts. I mean, apparently they've lasted for tens of thousands of years, some of these things. Like, why So is the everlasting nature of the sigil painted in the cave or etched on the rock, is that part of the purpose of doing that? Like this is like a permanent mark that I'm making, which represents uh the permanent intent of receiving from the universe, the resource.
The way that I can respond to that is to maybe I'll even pull up a little bit of an image that might help as well, because I think like an image speaks 1,000 words, but it's something that we're all aware of. I want you to think about the Green Man, for example, right? There are all these Green Man statues all around the world, yeah, and they're basically, it's a well-known thing, for example. And let me put on the screen. Here's just one example of Green Man clay molds, statues, and these would typically have been put in places near to fields, right? So the point I'm making is these are not isolated. Suddenly they stop doing it, right? This is something that humanity has done right up until recent times in the Middle Ages and more ancient times too, right? Where these old Green Man statues would have been. It's difficult to find some of the more of the original actual ones. I think this is one of the original ones here, and they would have often been put near to water features, right? And on pillars where, like, you walk out into your field, right? So you'd have your home and you'd have your field, your vineyards close to your home so that the predators don't come and get it. And it serves exactly the same purpose, right? It serves the same purpose later in time. So we can't just know what they meant thousands of years ago, many thousands of years. We can't just guess, but we can logically say, well, if we were doing this 4,000 years ago, and we were doing this 3,000 years ago, and we were doing this 1,000 years ago, and we were doing this 500 years ago, and we were doing this 300 years ago, we were doing it for the same reason all of that time. What do you think we were doing that for earlier time, which is the same idea, just not as elaborate, right? It's a logical deduction that if the Green Man has been a statue that has been put in the places and it represents the abundance and growth and health and crops and food and sustenance, what do you think? Did they just one day suddenly make it up? No, I think it evolved. Or what did it evolve from? Right? Things don't just pop out of a vacuum. Things evolve spontaneously and naturally through, through the development. As we develop, our ideas and our practices and our concepts develop, but they don't change that much. Even today, right? The idea of saying a prayer for your food, it's to bless the food, but it's more than that. Maybe we're ignorant in modern times, but if you look at it from a magical, hermetic perspective, blessing your food and putting thanks over your food is opening your heart to the spirit of gratefulness for this food. And we know that that manifests more of what you're grateful for. So if you want to start manifesting something in your life that you're grateful for, well, something that's really good, tune into that gratefulness, open your heart to it, and have a practice that acknowledges how amazing this is and how grateful you are for it, and send out that ray of positive worship and purification of that particular energy, and devote yourself to that, and you will naturally attract. So by saying a prayer over your food, you actually attract more food. It's a manifestational cycle. And so humans have always understood this concept. So whether they hunt the animal and then come and give thanks for the animal on the wall mural, right? Or whether they do the mural before they go and hunt the animal, it's 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. The act of doing the mural is more than just, hey, I'm bored. What should I do? I'm going to draw an animal, someone throwing a spear. I think there's definitely a spiritual element to this art. And there is a lot to be said about this evidentially, because here where I live, the Western Cape, Cape Town, we have certain rock art, bush arts around here, by the way. And I've seen some of them. And the areas where they are the sacred areas. So they wouldn't just do the bush art any old Dick, Tom, and Harry place. They would go to the sacred areas where their ancestral bones are laying and do the art. What does that tell you? They were communicating with the ancestors. They were saying to the ancestors, listen, this is a shamanic thing we're talking about here. We need these animals to survive. Will you help us? Yeah, this is what we need. We're going to give you an itinerary. There's me with a spear. I need that animal. I need him to make himself presentable, and I'll need my spear to be blessed so I can catch him for the family. And the ancestors, having then received this request, gratefulness, celebration, there's a spiritual element to it. The details of that are, I think, less important. I think the more important element is that we do notice that these arts do tend to happen in areas that were sacred, and we can tell by the bones. Bones were not just put anywhere. Bones were put in sacred areas, and to this day, the Sand people are fighting for the rights to some parts of the land here near where I live, because it's their sacred places. Their sacred burial grounds are on this peninsula where I live. So they want that land because it's been sacred to their people for thousands of years. So I think there's enough of that sort of conjectural evidence to point out and say, no, this definitely wasn't just, what should we do? I don't know, let's draw something, you know. I think it's a fairly accurate assessment, or it's a fairly well supported assessment to make, and then we see the evidence of the green man, right, which further supports this idea, as it's not just something that happened in a vacuum. It's been a part of our culture throughout time, right up to now when we bless our food. And why we have festivals, why we have a harvest festival, why we make a fire during the harvest, and why we build a big pole, a maypole, right? And the maypole dancing. And these festivals are exactly the same practice. Like, why were people having summer festivals? They were having summer festivals to celebrate the abundance of the land so that the next harvest would be good, right? That was the purpose of it. All these solstice celebrations weren't just like, hey, we're bored. Let's have a bash. Let's get together. No, there was a spiritual significance to the things that we did in the past. We didn't just do things willy-nilly. You know, that's my perspective.
Yeah, the Green Man thing reminds me of the practice of the Catholic or Christian practice of putting certain saints in the garden. Like my grandma had a saint. I can't remember exactly which one it was. But there's certain saints that are associated with gardening and growing things. You know, because a lot of saints were hermits, and they had to sustain themselves, but they also had a lot of time to devote themselves to a practice, and some of them would get really good at growing herbs, and they were out. Saints could be alchemists, and literally be mixing up herbs and creating healing medicine, make medicine. Um, so writing, evolution of writing, as you were saying, we had the, cave, we had the cave and the rock art, and that probably at some point transitioned into what do you call them? Pictograms, hieroglyphs. Um, but it was probably the way I think about it is probably it was probably like the hieroglyphs and the I don't know if they call the Aztec and the Mayan writing hieroglyphs, or there might be glyphs or something. I thought there was a different word for them. That stuff
I
seems to
think it's
me
I think it's
that's
just people playing with words.
yeah, that stuff
I think they
seems to
understand.
me to be like this high end, high religious way of communicating, you know, tapping these things into the stone very meticulously. But then there was probably the common uh, utilitarian um, written language, because you had to have both. You had to have the high elevated way of communicating, and then you had to have the I have 10 bushels of wheat for you, 10 bushels of wheat for you. Uh, you're going to jail. You're coming with me. You get, 5 ladles of water, that kind of stuff. Also, and that's probably where we get like the, what is it called? Like the Phoenician alphabet and the runes and like what is it? Was it Sanskrit? No, or what's I forget what it's called, but it's like it's the Middle Eastern thing where they have the little stick and they press it into the clay, and make the little dashes and arrows and
Uniform.
cuneiform. Yeah, the cuneiform. Um, that definitely seems like like I said, the utilitarian way of communicating, probably the most useful for the majority of people. Um,
I want to add
yeah,
that if you had a king that was collecting taxes, you needed all of this.
yeah, you had to have scribes. You had to have scribes, and and if like the 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 power, you know, the bureaucratic power of the kingdom through keeping records um wasn't necessarily, you know, it is useful for your economy and your your money, and basically just keep the engine of civilization going. But the and it probably led to, if you're a bushman and you're going to the bones of your ancestors, and you're picking the one guy or woman, who's like really good at the art to draw your images. um if eventually you are, there's that transition from, you know into higher civilizations. You got you're out in the bush, and now you're in the small village with the wall around it, and the resources become more collectivized, less individual. There's less of a reason to create those sigils that you once were required, maybe even. But it doesn't like there's not it's not like they lost that way of like, communicating with the divine or channeling of the divine. It's not as if it went away, you know like I was thinking, like how do you create a sigil? I mean, there's all sorts of other way. There's all sorts of, different. I think, ways of doing it individually, but like, if I wanted to put a sigil in my garden, uh, for the purpose of abundance and and good things, I would sit here and I would meditate on, or I would try to bring up, uh, all the good times that I've spent out in nature, and the different trees I've connected with, and all the different beautiful places, and I would try to create like a ball of energy, you know, and I would keep a ball of energy here, and I would be filling it and energizing it with these good visions and these emotions, and try to I mean, it's happened sometimes where you literally like receive a symbol, like you'll see it. Okay. And you get a symbol or some lines or something like that, and you start, doodling that stuff, and then you can refine it, but you still keep that ball of energy there, and then you can move that ball of energy into your design, and then that's where it lives. And then you can turn that thing into art, you know. You can make it bigger, and you put that sigil, uh, where you want, and it's infused with that energy. And you have this like you'll have this like you see, and every time you see it or you're around it, you'll have that connection that you made with it. And I think it's even and it's and that's and it's all right, take like the pentagram, for instance. The pentagram is kind of a sigil, pentacle or whatever. It's kind of like a sigil, and it means a whole lot of different things to a whole lot of different people because it's like backed up. There's a whole lot of baggage backed up with it in the culture, and so people will see it, and some people will be like, "Oh, it's literally Satan," or some people say it and be like, "Oh, that's it's the 5 points of man," and or all these other things. But when he was saying that was that the like you individually on your own alone will be creating a sigil, and like if it's powerful enough, like other people who see it or around it don't even know, have no idea about the process or like what that means. Maybe they associate it with the environment um that it's in, but they can also receive energy from it as well. As well. And so it's definitely it's a very interesting concept to play with, and play is very important.
Yeah, man. Play is the key. And welcome to all the new people that have been joining every day. Big love, big blessings. And just me and Zen. Welcome to you guys. And, to Tom and the specialist and Hollowbone Hawk and all the rest of you. If I've missed your name, I'm sorry. I keep getting bloody notifications. Oh, there we go. I can make the notification go away. Well, that's a start from this thing, and it shrinks my chat up to like this tiny one line, which is just so hard to be able to make sense of because it's moving too fast to read one line. But good to hear, Tom Rue. Good to hear. And you're right. Somebody was asking if the Mayan characters are sigils. Most definitely. The truth is that the alphabetical letters are sigils. I mean, if you really want to look at what a sigil is, like in magic, a sigil is created out of symbolic sources. You can create a sigil out of words. You can create a sigil out of sentences. You can create a sigil out of pictures. You can create a sigil out of like various different symbols. There are a lot of ways to create a sigil. So a hieroglyphic is really a sigil that's been created out of symbolic representations of things. And then groups of hieroglyphics put together would be a greater sigil, right? And these then would have been reduced in later times to become like a single hieroglyphic, which would have then in a later time been reduced to become an alphabetical letter. So there's definitely a connection between, sigils and our local alphabet. And when you walk past a bank, right, and you see that little logo, guess what a logo is? A logo is a sigil. So our banks are using magical, powerful symbols in order to communicate with our unconscious, and a sigil can communicate with an unconscious form. Sigil magic is a typical form of magic. It's very popular in the New Age, Crowley poisoned versions of what is called chaos magic. And I'm not knocking all chaos magic, and yes, of course it works, but a lot of things work, right? Eating GMO food that's been sprayed with cancer-causing toxins work, right? They keep you alive. They work, but they only work so well, and they only work for so long, right? You want to get better working results, you eat like biodynamic food that hasn't been touched with chemicals or poisons or fertilizers or anything. So that's common sense. But yeah, I think it's important to recognize just exactly how much sigils are a part of our life, because advertising companies are using them, and they are essentially magic. Those of you that don't know, the 72 emojis, those are sigils. By the way, if you don't know, the 72, what are they called? There's a particular group of 72 emojis that were created and released all at once. And if you look at those emojis and you break them down layer by layer, they are the 72 sigils of the angels. So come on, people. Even our emojis are sigils. So we are surrounded by sigils, and it's so much a part of our life. Yeah, the $sign, classic, Howard. The $sign, ISIS, classic sigil, classic. That isn't even a hit. That's like using the most typical form of magical sigil creation. Yeah, every day. Yeah, how? There are no letters. Give us a specific example. What are you talking about? Are you talking to me, or are you talking in the chat? Oh, that's Howard giving a specific example, I'm guessing. Or if you're talking to me, then let me know, because then I'll respond. S, okay. You want to know what the S and the two lines through it is? One Earth and Namaste, welcome, One Earth. If you take the word Isis, this is like typical magical law. So there's many ways of creating a sigil, but the most common way of creating a sigil, the quickest way, is to take a word, then you break the word down. You can remove the vowels, and you can remove repeated consonants. Some people like to keep the vowels in. It's your choice. There's a lot of leeway in creating a sigil. You can use it by using images, pictures, memes. Memes can be sigils, believe it or not. So what is ISIS? ISIS. Okay. Take the I, turn the two I's, superimpose them over each other. You get an I over an I, right? Superimpose the two S's over the two S's, you get an S and an S, right? The S is repeated. You can skip one of the S's, and you can just take the S with the I in the front of the S and the I after the S. I, S, I, S. The $sign spells the word Isis, which is an Egyptian goddess. It's 101. So, who are you praying to when you're spending dollars? Isis, right? And she's the goddess of magic, right? Egyptian law. goddess of wisdom. And what does the dollar represent? It represents the pyramid, right? The pyramid of the Masons. And they've got all their magical symbolism wrapped into that pyramid. And they have their 33 levels of magical initiation. So, it's a magical group that have basically gotten control of the banks. They have also been hijacked by a different group, the Zionists. We think the Zionists are just ruling Israel. Dream again. The Zionists are ruling the world. They are the Frankists all over again, even though Google will tell you that no, Zionists are not the Frankists rebranded. They were very heavily affected and informed by Frankist philosophy and belief systems, but they are not the Frankists. They just have the same ideology, and the same philosophy, and the same patterns, and the same aspirations, and the same goals. So, and who were the Frankists? They were the Sabbatarians. And who were the Sabbatarians? Well, Sabbatai, black cube worshipper. He was a black magician, a black Kabbalistic magician that was exiled and excommunicated by all the rabbis because his views were like impure and immoral, and his practices were impure and immoral. They sometimes involved children. They involved doing the kind of things that the elites do to this day. Catch a wake-up call. Take a look at who's ruling the world. So, and these Zionists, part of their mission was to infiltrate all the organizations. So they used the Kabbalistic law of magic to cast spells. And so they created advertising, which was advertising before it was called advertising, was called foreign relations. Is it foreign relations? Have I got that right? And before that, it was called propaganda. So the word propaganda is related to advertising. And then that was too obvious, so they had to change it. Then I don't know if foreign relations is the right word name that it had between advertising and propaganda. There was another name. Can't think of the word. But regardless, so you are surrounded by sigils and magic. Now, the books that we read have been carefully edited. And the editing press has decided which books get into print and which books don't. If you're a scientist and you're doing real science and you're challenging the status quo, don't expect to go into print because it's not going to be happening. And well done, Josh. Go and do your class. Recorded lessons next, and go and make sure your mommy's on top of it. Well done. You get your reward later. Don't disturb me again, please. He's come to show me that he's done his writing exercises. Now he's going to do his recorded lessons. Good. I told you I was cracking a whip this morning, Jeremy. I was cracking a whip. There's a naval festival this weekend, and I said, there's no way you're going to that naval festival unless you do X, Y, and Z, and I want to see the evidence. So he's a good boy now. He doesn't want to miss that naval festival because, you see, they got the big guns, Jeremy, the big guns. And the children get to play with the big guns. They take out the firing pins, mounted guns. They get to like play with them a little. And it's the only place he gets to handle a gun that big. So, he's very excited about going to the Naval Museum.
That's cool. So I wanted to, I've been posting in the chat. There's a couple books there. One is How to Slay a Wizard by Owen Benjamin. Some of you might know that guy. And I picked it up. And it's a very good book, very timely, and it has to do with language manipulation, language and manipulation, language as the manipulator, and it's not what's that?
NLP, neuro linguistic programming.
That's what it's called. Some of that definitely. And it's definitely a holistic approach to the whole matter. And it, there's something interesting about the era that we live in, which is this expansion of information and this reach that we have into all sorts of tight little crevices of human communication. And you there's so many ways, there are so many opportunities to uh, dig in, to pick up and dig in to all sorts of things. Um, but the ability to parse information and discern, what's good and what's bad, uh, and what where you should go next. Um, that can be difficult because there's just like an overwhelming amount of information. There can be, as well as um, in reference to Owen Benjamin's book, wizardry, which is information given to you with an evil intent, behind it. And his book, How to Slay a Wizard, he goes through the different ways that um, language and words are used to excite, certain emotional responses in your brain, and thus motivating you to think a certain way or to spend your money a certain way. It has to do with words and color and things like that. And so I highly recommend this book. It's very easy to read. You read it a few times. I'm on my first pass through, and there obviously there's one aspect in every one of us can think back and probably readily bring up a moment in our lives where someone said something, and it just either said to it personally, you heard it on a podcast, you overheard it from somewhere else, but something somebody said, their words stuck with you, right? And so there's a power there where uh things you read or pick up can stick with you. And for me at least, the things that I want I want to stick with me, I really have to work at. So I have to use repetition. But there's a lot of good lessons in that book. So I think that's worthwhile going through. The other book that I wrote down, and there's a series of these books. There's this guy, Dylan Sicasio, I think his name is. I might be pronouncing that wrong. But there's a series of books that he wrote called Spirit World. I think the first one is called Spirit World. Spirit World, and then Spirit like World. And he it's a very interesting book. It's dense. Uh, I had to read it slowly. That's just me though. But he goes through how words can have double, triple, quadruple meanings, um, and how they can be used deceptively. So that's definitely a book to check out. And then there's the concept of the language of the birds, um, which has meaning in the Abrahamic traditions, as well as the just plainly naturalistic um, applications. Uh, just go out and you listen to the birds, and the birds, it's anywhere you go, for the most part, you'll hear wind, and you'll hear birds, and you'll hear bugs. Um, you don't really hear mammals because they're all trying to eat each other, and they have to be sneaky, except for dogs, um, which are protected by us for the most part. But birds will definitely, uh, they'll speak to you. They'll tell you all sorts of things, of course, right? Like we're here, in Virginia, all the birds are back, um, either awake or they've migrated back, and uh, they're ecstatic, they're absolutely joyful every morning, all the time, that it's getting warmer and all the bugs are outside that they get to eat. But anyways, so I wrote those things down in the chat. I don't know if there's any way to um, search that, but those are good things to look up and definitely applicable to our conversation here.
You mentioned the language of the birds, and this is exactly what I was thinking about. You see, in my experience, and anybody that has had there's different kinds of awakening experiences we have. So it's like this. Many of these awakening experiences will be put into a context of some kind of a psychological challenge, because they're not understood by the neurochemists or the therapists. They just don't grasp them. They're out of their ken. They're out of their range of experience and knowledge. It's not written about in their textbooks. So it must be that. Must be something wrong, right? This is the problem with books. We read books, so that's right. So other things must be wrong. That's how the brain works. Once we know what's right, then we decide what's wrong. And the moment we know what's right and we decide what's wrong, we are no longer paying attention. Now, the language of books, there is no right or wrong. There is no particular meaning. There is a contextual appreciation, but the contextual specifics of meaning is relative and relevant to one's emotional state. So by listening to the birds, one can go into a deep state of reverie where the birds will start to talk to you. Now they will say, oh, well, you're losing it. Well, okay. All shamans throughout all time have lost it. You go into such a deep contemplation of the wind, and the wind will be talking to you. Go into a deep contemplation of the planets, and the planets will be talking to you, right? Go into a deep contemplation of humanity and our situation and our plight and this existence and the meaning of life. What happens? Humanity starts talking to you.
You gotta, I'm just gonna interject here. You gotta make, I think it's important to make time to lose it. Whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly, setting outside some time, to lose it. And that might be different things for all sorts of, different people. That might be going on a bender, getting drunk on alcohol, or some other substance, or losing it could be, uh pumping up the music, in your studio, or in your car, and basically it's just it's getting yourself into a trance state. Trance. Like that's like the goal. But getting there, it means it's like, different ways for different people. Um because because that's how because you're like separating yourself. Like there's this daily life, there's this daily grind, there's this 9 to 5, right? And you're in it, and you got to survive, and you got to make your goddamn money, and all this sorts of stuff. But but getting to the trance, that's the separation. You got to, rip yourself away from the grind to get to the trance, to get to the transcendence, to get the divine. It's not, you're not like getting it, um you're like revibrating yourself. You're tuning in. But the way to tune in, it might take some extreme measures. But anyway, I just wanted to say, like, losing it, like uh that's a great concept, because it's like losing it. Like, well, there might be a little bit of fear there. Like, well, what am I losing? I don't want to lose. I want to win.
I mean, I covered this in the autobiography of a shaman with Jeremy. like more than a year ago, where I explained that there are ways that you can use a mantra. You can generate a word trigger program, which is like a set of words that have a particular meaning. You can calculate the number of the words, the number of the syllables, the number of the letters, the numbers of the addition of the letters, what it means, what kind of vibration you're picking up out of the words and different frequencies. You can customize those words. It can be simple, they can be poetic. There can be many different aspects to the way in which those words are sort of coming through. And you then program those words to run in your mind. And you can simplify them, break them down to their bare root source. And then you can have one program running, two programs running, three programs running. Practice. First get one and have it running in your mind rhythmically. And then when those words are cycling through your mind, then you get another wheel running behind that wheel. And then you've got two wheels of words running. And you're observing these two phrases going through your mind simultaneously. And if you can get to the point where you generate a third phrase, and you've got three phrases, three wheels running at different speeds through your mind simultaneously, it's a training technique. It doesn't just happen. Then you will get to the point where you are without thought, absolutely without thought, because you're just observing the three wheels of word triggers running through your mind. And if you can maintain that 24 hours a day or throughout your entire day and keep those three wheels turning, and if one of them starts to slow you, you go and put attention onto that wheel and get the wheel turning, and you've got these three wheels of words turning in your mind, and then start interacting with people while these three wheels are turning in your mind. That's like you'll go into a deep trance. Now, like I was saying, the birds will speak to you, but did you know that you can go through life and you'll meet a strange lady on the street, an old lady, and she will tell you something that's very personal to you. She didn't know what she was saying. It might be metaphorical, it might be allegorical, but you will notice that everybody that you speak to is speaking to you, to your higher self, to your deepest aspects. I know.
I gotta real quick just before I forget, because I gotta step away for a second. But when COVID was happening, like right when it was happening that first month, I was in California and I was with a buddy of mine at a cafe. And this older woman approached us, and it was kind of weird. She didn't say anything at first. She just held up this basically this binder, and she started flipping through these pages, showing us a presentation, and it was it was anti-COVID stuff. She was like a truther, basically, and she was look at the deception, right? And this was in the first few weeks of the event. I forget what her name was. It was like this biblical name, and it stood out to me. I was curious about it, and I looked it up on the internet, and my name's Jeremy, from Jeremiah. And I looked it up, and her name is actually associated with my name in the Old Testament. Somehow we're connected in the Old Testament. And fucking blew my mind. I was like, shit, I should have because I was sitting there and I was looking at her, and this is it's weird. We're in Berkeley, and there's all sorts of weirdos there. And since COVID was happening, everyone was losing their mind. So I was kind of like, all right, just I'll pay attention, dude. Just stay over there. But she was completely harmless. Yeah, you just reminded me of that. I thought that was super weird. I have to step away for a minute, but I'll be back. So continue on.
Sweet, brother. Sweet. Yeah, man. So all I was getting at was that the world will be talking to you personally. Someone will come to you to talk about their feelings in themselves, but they will say you this, and they'll use their words, and the words will have a contextual meaning that relates to something deep. And like Jeremy says, there'll be a synchronicity. There'll be something happening in your life, and you'll meet someone and they'll be talking about something that's happened to someone they know, but it will be you that they're talking about, and they won't know it, right? And the synchronicities and this will start to come to you, and people will become your teacher. You won't need a book to teach you the occult. Every human being out there will give you a different piece of wisdom, sacred knowledge, wisdom. They won't know the esoteric knowledge that they're sharing with you, because they will think they're talking about X, Y, Z. But to you, it will mean something different. That's how esoteric knowledge works. So that's my point of contextual information, and intuitive information. And you can learn profound knowledge about the secrets of the universe and yourself and the nature of life and time in such a way where, in order to go to that place, you need to be beyond a linguistic frame. You cannot have beliefs of, I believe X, I don't. You need to go to a point where you disbelieve everything, absolutely everything. And when you start disbelieving everything, then you're open to everything to a point. And that's where the wisdom comes through. We have Shinobi with us. I call him Toby One Shinobi.
What's
He's
up?
a Jedi thought wielder, word wielder, Jedi word wielder, thought dealer. He's a Jedi word wheeler, thought dealer, a little bit of a soul healer. Come to us, and he's a freewheeler. He says, hey, I've come to you to show you the real. I'm not the rapper in the world. Welcome, dear brother. For those of you who don't know Shinobi, he's like I said, Toby One Kenobi, and Shinobi One Kenobi. Actually, Toby One Kenobi sounds pretty cool as well. Seriously, dude, you got to grab that name, man. No one else has got it. It's your name.
Yeah, but the thing is with Toby One Kenobi is you have Obi-Wan Kenobi already. You know?
Yeah, but now you've added Saturn to it.
In what way?
The T.
Well, do you know what? My initials are TH, Toby Hawks, and obviously Saturn's glyph is a T and a H. It's probably like why I feel so connected to Saturn, like very drawn to it. Like amongst the fact that it's been demonized so heavily and stuff. But yeah, man, like I've been in the chat the whole time, like having a good time in the chat, sharing weaves and stuff with people. But yeah, man, you were talking about what you were talking about was quite profound a second ago. I didn't quite hear what you said with the three in regards to a video you made a while ago or something, but to do with like thought patterns and like the wheels. So I'd like to hear that again.
I explain a lot of this stuff in there's if you go to my podcasts for everybody. If you go and look at podcasts and you go to autobiography of a shaman, there's 10 video autobiography. It's a lot of information. Sorry, people. It's my life story, how I became a shaman, the occult path, the mystic path, how I moved from drowning to having ESP, to struggling with it, to being drawn into the occult as a child, to being guided and taught by this mysterious gentleman and his sidekick, and then being brought into mystery schools, and then being initiated into different forms of practice and training and studying, and then going on first going to connect with the African spirit, and then going on an incredible journey and being introduced to the mysticism and living in India for many years. And then after being drawn into the mysticism and the Tantra, then being drawn into the shamanism and meeting a shaman, and then going to live in the jungles. And it's like the whole story of my life. But in that, there's a lot of things that I share, like practices of things that I did that I discovered through, well, just say intelligent guesses, because I did have a base of study, and I would be sitting with these gentlemen, and we would have conversations, which are essentially knowledge lectures, but they would be in the form of a conversation, and they would sort of guide my meditations and my contemplations with questions. They wouldn't tell me things so much as ask me the questions that would get me thinking, and that was the way that they taught. And so anyway, the three wheels has got to do with, like, if you were to break it down simply, you could be like, you could have a simple phrase like, let go, forget, let go, forget. Or you could be let go, forget, and be, for example. And you could run that phrase through your mind, in the back of your mind, and keep it flowing like a river, like a rhythm, until you can step back and it's doing it by itself, and you can watch the phrase going around in your head. And when you just put a certain amount of awareness on it, it maintains like a wheel turning of words. And then you can start with the second phrase that you consciously concentrate on with the other phrase, and you just put enough attention on the other phrase to keep the phrase moving. And then you're hearing two phrases in your heads simultaneously. And then you can step back and step back and step back to the point that you see these two phrases running in your head. And then you can start to add a third phrase. And the third phrase could be like, I am that I am. And you could have these three phrases running through your head. They fit into each other with particular paces and rhythms. Because you've been observing the rhythm of the one phrase, you get another phrase that fits into the rhythm of that phrase. And these two phrases work like a unit. And then finding a point in the rhythm, you got all three phrases moving like turning wheels. And then you just observe these three phrases running through your head. And the activity of observation of all of these removes the ability for you to follow habitual thinking patterns, basically.
So do you know what was coming to me then was Yggdrasil? I still can't pronounce it. The three fates, past, present, and future. And Yggdrasil being a big sigil, and the well, like being a vortex, like we were talking about kind of yesterday, and being in the center of the vortex, being in the center and not being swayed one way or the other, just letting things come and flow and spin.
Being well.
Well, yeah, and using your will as well, and not being moved by the current. What I mean by that is not being moved by the current stream. That is what that word could mean. So if you have words come to you like weird, rather than being like, oh, weird means this, or at the beginning I mentioned one of the books could be a dictionary, because dictionaries are quite hollow. They tell you what the word so-called means, is one definition of it, but like a question. So if you sit with a question, what is it? It's asking something, but really what it is at the essence is you're on a quest. Your energy's on a quest. Your ions are on a quest ion. But you won't find that definition anywhere. But like with that kind of thinking of like past, present, future, the three fates, the well of Yggdrasil, you can sit there and let things from the past, from the future, using the present kind of spin, and let things come to you and create new concepts and new words, new words, new fates of words that we're given. And this ties into the spellcraft as well, that TallTree was talking about, that book. I haven't heard of the book, but like I think the kind of collective spell is starting to dissolve. And when I hear book, it reminds me of box, because a book is where the light is buried inside a box. There is the light, there is the occult knowledge, and books can be useful. My path hasn't been reading books. It's been listening to conversations and using what you're explaining there, of just kind of sitting in the middle, not being swayed one way or the other, just kind of letting things come and just using intuition, which does come over time. It's quite a lonely place at first because you have all these insights, but sometimes people might not have anyone to talk to them about, and you can have all this like profound insights, and then it's just like, who can I talk to it about? Because it's quite difficult to explain. So that's why I'm so grateful for these conversations and everyone in the chat and stuff, because we can all kind of share our insights and stuff, not from a place of wanting to prove that we're right, but just of like, this could be what it is. And books are useful to an extent because they have knowledge, and that knowledge is to know the ledge. Now, is that ledge stopping you looking further into something else? Or is that ledge useful as a bridge to cross into another realm? So it's up to us whether we use that knowledge and say, well, this is what it is, case solved, you know, the answers, everything's been answered. Or if we can kind of use that intuition to view the ledge, the boundary, and decide whether we want to cross it and use it as a bridge, because knowledge is a bridge. But again, people are trolled. People are gaslit to not cross the bridge. And this bridge I'm talking of is the bridge of spirit and matter, the formless and the form. And really what these dark occultists do is they try to get in the middle of the spirit and the matter and try and morph and shape our thoughts so that we speak and we create, but we don't really know what we're saying. But I think that kind of spell work is kind of dissolving, because I really feel it, and especially in these chats with like Howard and Tom Rowe and stuff, and Big Az and Star, all like sort of like dissolving the knowledge, dissolving it, and kind of using it as a bridge to bring in the formless into form, using the fates, using the words and the norms, the nouns to cast our own spells, which is beautiful.
Yeah, you know, the ledge, we keep ledges, and the words have to be legible, right? And I think it's got a lot to do with perspective. And this is why, you know, in all the ancient traditions, the words were not supposed to be. You look in the Vedas, and the Vedas will tell you a lot about a lot, but they won't give you the specific secrets, right? The how to do. That knowledge is kept by the guru and is taught from guru to Cheli, guru, Cheli, guru, Cheli. And one gains those insights by practice when one is near a guru and one observes the guru and one learns through the guru's actions and what they teach, and through their being, inducting it literally into yourself, like osmosis. So there's different ways. So the practical knowledge isn't really kept in the books. It never was. And so the Kabbalah, which is a practical handbook, was never actually to be written down. And nor was the mysteries of the Hermetics, nor were the practices of the ancient Egyptians, nor was the knowledge of the shaman, nor was the knowledge of other magical forms. So there's something in this. There's a reason why these things were never written down. Even though writing did exist, it would have been considered sacrilegious to write it down. Now, in modern times, you've got these people that have written about these things. And it sort of contradicts, like the word, for example, if you look at the word Kabbalah, for example, it literally has inflections that means the ear and the mouth being connected. And specifically, the word that shares the mouth that shares the word to the ear. It's literally like inflected within the meaning of the word. So it was never supposed to be put down in such a form, because here's where the dangers come, right? One set of words will be interpreted by Johnny in a different way to the same set of words being interpreted by Selena, to a different way to the same words interpreted by Paul, Michelle, David, or Angelique. They're all going to interpret and get a different message from the same words. And so in a guru situation, the guru would give different words to John and different words to Mary, different words to Suzanne and different words to, Joe. And they would have the wisdom and the insight to know what to share with each person, which is optimal for them gaining a real understanding of what it is that's being discussed. Now, when you write down something in a generic framework, it's most likely going to be misinterpreted, most likely going to be misunderstood just through the act of writing it. Maybe the esoteric information will be interpreted, but the true esoteric meanings will most often be misinterpreted by most of the people. And that's just sort of how that translates to the human consciousness vehicle, because what Toby was just talking about, the ledger in our brain, our ledger is our belief system. And our ledger has been formulated by the knowledge that we've accumulated or crystallized beliefs. And so we crystallize these beliefs. We call it knowledge, even though it's not true knowledge. But our perspective turns it into what we could consider as a proverbial false knowledge. And we base everything that we read and hear upon what we've learned in the past. So depending on what you've learned in the past, you're going to get a different message from one set of words to a different person. And no two people have necessarily had the exact same background of learning. This is how we get controlled in the education systems of school. Namaste, Tanya. How are you? Tanya Mary D. I hope you're well. Hope you're thriving. And so this is why they want children to have the same background, of the same books read, of the same lessons listened to, of the same conditioning. That way, when they put words in a book, they can control how you will inflectively, how you will receive those words, and how those words will inform your opinions, and how those opinions will shape your perspectives, and how those perspectives will give you a particular perspective or particular perceived knowledge, and that would be your proverbial ledger of information. And based upon that ledger of information, you would not agree with information that challenges your status quo. And you might try to agree with it in a way that doesn't unsubstantiate what you think you know, which would mean twisting some of the bits of information to fit the ideas that you preconceived in your mind. And we all do this. So he has an interesting idea about how words work, as opposed to like martial arts, for example. You can't teach martial arts with words. You can, up to a very small point, but really it's observation, practice, expression, training, observation, practice, training, it's a continual cycle of that. You watch your teacher, you watch how they do it. Sure, they told you in the beginning exoterically how to do it, but in the end, it becomes really noticing. I noticed that they have this nuance. And so they will not tell you, they'll walk up to you and they'll hit you with a stick, like a thwack. Oh, okay, that leg's wrong. Ouch. That leg doesn't belong there. Whoa, okay, I just learned that. That was ouch. Or they'll come and they'll stand next to you and they'll just reposition you. They'll have a freeze moment and they'll stand there and they'll shift your elbow. They'll shift your this, they'll shift your hip, they'll shift you, and they'll just stand and realign your body, and you'll get that feeling. And then they'll like rock you so that you have to brace, so that you can feel, oh, wow, when I brace like this, I've got a good solid brace. Interesting. And then they'll leave you. Now, you know you're supposed to apply that, right? You're supposed to apply, that's that bracing feeling. So I want to have that brace at the end of my strike. And at the beginning of my strike, I want to start from this brace, release this brace, and end in that brace, so that there's a fluid elasticity between the brace that starts and the brace that ends, so that there's this flow of elastic energy that can loop these two modes of posture. And so this is something you learn through practice. And it's the same with the occult, the same with spiritual things, you know. Unfortunately, and I was having a long conversation with my girlfriend about this last night, you know, there are all these people writing books, all these people training, and it's like I said to her, a lot of the stuff they share is probably good, exoteric information. Some of it might be somewhat esoteric, but from my perspective, a lot of it is more exoteric. And like I was laughing with her. I was saying, like, it reminds me of when I was like 18 years old, if I had been like arrogant enough to like write books and teach, you know, just from the amount of practice and experience and devotion that I had like back in, the 90s. And then to see the people now, like, and I see this all the time. Oh, they had a life-changing moment in like 2012. And then they, changed their life and started these practices. And suddenly by the time they get to like 2021, they're writing books. I'm like, what the hell, man? That's like ridiculous. To me, it seems like there's this thing. And so we don't realize this because they've got a book, it's got a cover, it's printed. The words look nice, they make sense, so we'll go with it. And so we follow these books and we read these books, but in the end, the information in the books are quite limited and quite limiting. And all you need, and the same, I can apply this to martial arts. You can be taught a technique and you can be taught 95% of everything about that technique correctly. If there's 5% that's wrong, you will miss 50% of the utility of that technique. And this is why when I was a child and I weighed like 64 kilograms, and I would get the big guy who weighed like 110 kilograms. I want to hit the pad of this guy. And he'd be like looking at my sensei, because I used to go to the adult classes. And my sensei would smile at him and just nod. And he wouldn't know what's going to happen, because like maybe I haven't trained with this guy. And he'd hit the pad and hit the pad and hit the pad. And he'd be surprised because my stances I had the strongest stances. They used to break wood on me. Like I could root myself to the earth and I'm rooted. I'm not going anywhere. Even when I weighed 64 kilograms as a child, I was rooted. And so you'd be surprised, he doesn't. And then we had these square pads that were like, maybe like about, they were quite thick. They were like thicker than your shoulders. It's like a square block, like your shoulders. Imagine a square block, like that big, below your belly button, up to like your face. It's like a big square block, and you hold it, and it fits into your shoulders, right? You can strap it onto your body, and it's a big, different layers of different rubber and sponge, and you can hit that hard. And you strap it to your sternum, and people hit your sternum, and I'd hit this guy, and he'd go back 4 feet. And his eyes would go wide, and I'd hit, and these guys would just stare. They couldn't understand, how is a 65-kilogram kid generating almost twice the power with a punch that me, 120-kilogram massive bodybuilding guy, I couldn't even begin to generate a fraction of that power. Like, these guys are realizing that this little 14-year-old boy would knock me out and break my jaw with one punch. Like, how is that possible? Simple technique. I really paid attention to the technique, like in a way that few people do. And I would train that technique in ways that other people didn't. I would break the technique down into each segment and train that segment and find where that segment connects the other segment. If you don't have that, if one of the details in that little chain is wrong, you're going to lose most of the power. And in order to take your power from like that much to that much, you need all the segments. The chain has got to be complete. And once you got that chain complete, you can launch a punch, and it can generate incredible amount of power. But it's the same with knowledge in the esoteric and the occult field as well, right? Like, if you want to understand a profound idea, you need to have every link in the chain succinctly linked. One misfiring link in that chain, and you're going to lose 50% of the potential understanding and wisdom that you could have had regarding that particular topic or that particular idea. And it will make you skew. But you might think that it's not skew, right? Just like that big guy thought that he was like a big guy, he can punch hard, until he saw this little boy. And then he was like, you should see the guy's faces. It's priceless, man. Like, you see the brain can't compute. This is impossible. Like, this is why I'm saying a woman, if she's taught how to really apply a martial arts technique properly, can be more devastating than a big bodybuilder. Like, really, she can, if she learns. So, when it comes to this esoteric field, martial arts is probably a really good, because martial arts is very esoteric. It's the technique on the surface. I watch all these MMA fighters and I'm like, yeah, it's all cool. It's all cool. It's all cool. But in the street, like these are not a one punch man down solution. None of them. None of these champions have got a one punch man down solution. That's it. Like, you know, they might knock a guy out for a few seconds, but like I don't imagine any of them just one smack and the guy's laying there 20 minutes. He needs a stretcher to hospital. I don't see it. I don't see them having that capacity because they haven't trained the basic technique. And so when it comes to the occult, you got the same thing, right? You got this showman occultism. It's giving you a lot of the little basics. It's all good and well, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to take you to that next level. And that next level is really important to make that personal gnostic connection within yourself. And that's when you discover. That's how I discovered these 3 circles. No one taught me that. I discovered that because I understood the fundamental occult principles as a child, right? And so that's why I was sitting there in the mid-1990s meditating on the wisdom and the knowledge of the occult. And sure, I read a lot of books, but I was lucky. As a child, I was an extreme rebel. I was very distrustful of anything I saw in a book. I would read the book with the attitude of, this is probably bullshit, but I'll read it just because it's there. And I would read it and I would be like criticizing it in my mind. I'd be like, I don't know. And I would go and figure out things for myself. And I would sort of look at the ideas from the book and I would think of the book in my mind. I would put it in, this is all wrong. If I can find one thing that works out of it, I'll try and apply it. And I would find the little pieces. And so that's how I treated books. Most people don't, though. Because in school, I resented school from like age 9. Age 10, I teetotaled my school. Teetotaled, I had to close the school. I almost got expelled for vandalism because I didn't want to be there, and I didn't respect that the teaching methods were actually that I was learning. I thought they were trying to control my mind. Seemed to me more like mind control than actual information to me as a child. So I always had this distrust. Most people don't have such a virulent distrust. Yeah. Most 14-year-olds don't have the balls to look or even 13, don't have the balls to look their teacher in the eye and say, that history, I don't believe it, it's wrong. I'm closing this history textbook and there's nothing you can do to ever get me to open this textbook ever again. And I refuse to do any exercises from this textbook. I refuse to open it. I will not work with it. Send me for cuts. They send you for cuts to come back. And the headmaster wants to expel you, and you say, if you expel me, you better make sure that we're going to be in court. Because if I don't fail history, you don't expel me. I don't care what you say. They ask you to leave the school. I don't care what you say. I'm going to be here tomorrow. If you want me out, you better take the legal action to get me out of the school, or else I won't go. I told the headmasters that. They tried to get rid of me since the age of 15. I didn't care what they said, just because they're in a position of authority. My poor mother's crying her eyes out next because her son's just been expelled. And I said, I don't think I'm expelled. Headmasters, what? So I don't see the paperwork correct. I said, because I need paperwork to take to the Board of Education to have you fired, sir. Big eyes. They said, and I will. My father will support me. My mother, you can convince her what she wants. My dad will stand up for me. I will have my day with you in court, and I will take you apart. So the teachers were scared of me because I told them straight, I will not budge. You want to send me to cuts? I'll take my cut. I'll do what I'm told, but I will not open that book. So most children didn't have that level of personal integrity where they decided that book is BS and I won't open it. That book is, I was running through the books. And so but you have to have that attitude if you're going to work with books. If you don't have that attitude, you're likely to be brainwashed by books. This is what I feel in my gut, in my heart. And because the idea of reading a book is you're reading. A read is like a tube, and the information gets poured through a tube. And it's like it goes in, like the xylem or the xylophyllum of a tree. It's like the inside of a reed. And you're sucking information into the tree, and the tree now will be made out of what's been sucked into it. The minerals, the water, the substances, the CO2 that gets sucked in through the stomata will become the substance of the tree. So you can't help becoming the substance of what you take into yourself. So you got to be really careful what you take into yourself. And the only true knowledge there is the sacred geometry of nature. Go into nature and study the flowers, and you will be surprised that a flower can talk to you. It won't be a flower, it will be a spirit intelligence, but it will be talking to you through a flower. And I think this is what we've lost. We've lost this ability to go into nature and have nature talk to us directly on a profound spiritual level. And we've supplemented this ability for reading books and forming a narrow-minded perspective of square. You know, there was somebody who was talking to me the other day about somebody who had taken a lot from the Course of Miracles. You all know that book, right? And the Course of Miracles isn't a bad book necessarily, but they've taken Gnostic ideologies and they've put them into little bite-sized exoteric chunks that everybody can understand. And for all that it is, it creates a lot of misunderstanding of true occult precepts and true occult principles. By giving you a lot of true occult principles in bite-sized forms, you're going to form very clear, very structured opinions of information that you haven't fully investigated yourself. Gnosticism is supposed to be a personal path. You're not supposed to induct so much information with belief structures, because those belief structures that give you the idea to understand certain basic concepts will limit you and prevent you from understanding the more profound ones. That's true esotericism. I don't know. Are you with us, Shinobi? I don't want to get onto a long tirade unless you are busy. Good. In case you were wanting to speak. But yeah, I think like this is a big issue. Here we go. TallTree is back. Big love, brother.
Hey, I gotta go.
Okay, dear brother. How's your little one doing?
Oh, she's great. She slept for like forever. She didn't even wake up last night. So I went up there to just to, peek my head in. And she was like, "Hello." I was like, "Okay, let's get up."
Well, dear brother, Om Shanti. Enjoy your sweetheart, and have an absolutely lovely day, man.
Yeah, you too, man.
You came down, and I was rolling on a rhythm of attacking words.
Yeah.
I do feel we need to become so much more ingrained in nature, because I had an owl come to teach me a while ago. Wow. What that owl taught me, I won't learn from 10 books. One conversation with an owl. It's more than 10 books of knowledge. Like downloaded, like once you see where I'm going from, brother. It's like these nature, man. Nature is the key. Anyway, blessed be Om Shanti. Have a lovely day.
To you as well.
And a weekend.
I'll see you later.
Later, brother.
All right, bye-bye.
Big love. So yeah, the linguistic. Now, another thing to understand is that the parts of the brain used, and Shinobi, just flash your picture to me when you're around and when you want to say something, yeah? Because I imagine Shinobi is busy doing this and that at the moment. And I've got a little guy pressing the doorbell. The doorbell. It's a very painful doorbell to press, my sweetheart. That doorbell that you press hurts, Daddy. It hurts me. Yes, it's very sore doorbell. It's Aina. So yeah, I think it's important for us to recognize as well and realize just how much of our own perception is sort of resting in the ideas that we hold. So I want you to stretch your mind for a moment into the nature. Disney's going down, Gaz. I pray Disney's going down. All that pornographic depiction of children in images that have made up animals is disgusting. I hope you guys have seen it. It's the most, once you see it, you can't unsee it. I remember it must have been about 15 years ago. I saw a cartoonist, somebody who's an animator, break down the images, yeah, and they would take layer by layer off of the Disney characters. And when you take off the layers, they're able to like show you that this is a man bending over a child doing something to that child, and then you add the other layers, and then now it becomes like a creature. What is it, like a duck or whatever it is, right? But when you break down the layers, you can see that it's sigils. It's human body forms, sigils, and usually adults doing things to children. And once you see those Disney shapes, you cannot unsee them. It's very, very almost traumatizing. So I've like try to keep my child like as free of Disney as possible. We had Disney Plus for a while, but we didn't. He didn't watch Disney. He used Disney Plus to watch all the Star Wars films, the Star Wars series. I wanted him to get into the Star Wars. I thought that's quite cool. Good background for things if you're going to watch something. And you know, some of the X-Men series and some of the other series that were good. There was some good stuff on there. But once we had seen that, I took Disney Plus off because I didn't want him to get sidetracked by like these funny ducks that are selling, you know, kiddie fiddling unconsciously. So yeah, you know, I told him I'm going to get Disney Plus back because I think there's going to be more. I actually want to go and watch a series there, which I thought was really well done, and I'm very keen to see where they're going to take it because I think there's going to be a lot of programming that's going to come out, which is the acrobat guy. What's it called? The guy who's blind and he's a lawyer, and he's I think they brought out the last series like maybe last year or something. So I figured that I'll go and watch and maybe even break it down and do some episodes here about it because it's interesting, I think, to see what they're telling us through these films and these series. But yeah, you know, getting back to the topic, you know, the mystic wisdom and how it's limited by the linguistic learning curve of our minds, is the moment we start formulating words, we start changing our perception. This is really important to understand because the nature of reality is essentially the experience of our perception, right? Yeah, Monsters Incorporated and Adrenochrome, all of that gas. Man, it makes me a bit angry. I don't like being angry. I feel the fire burning in my belly when I get angry, and I want to reach out and do things I shouldn't do with energy, which isn't healthy. You got to control your anger and channel it through different systems so that you can express it and come to terms with it without having to, you know, act it out, preferably. But you have to express it and you have to process it. Anger can't just be repressed. But I do think that there is a lot that we can recognize when we see this, because reality, we aren't just experiencing reality. I want you to meditate on this. We are creating reality. And I want us to like consider that for a while. You're not just experiencing reality, you're creating reality. And you're facilitating this production of reality through the ideas that you centralize within your thought form arena in your mind. And these thought forms resonate, and they are saturated in passion, desire, emotion. We feel them, and we feel these thought forms, and we feel the qualities that are flowing through and animating these thought forms to give them life. And this formulates our perspective. And our perspective then becomes crystallized and starts to become an expression of our actual an expression of our actual state of mind. And this expression of our actual state of mind is then what we start to become fixated on. And it's really important to recognize this. I just want to see if I need to make space. I'm supposed to be empty recycle bin. It's a good idea. Empty it. Just checking what that does when I empty the recycle bin. Okay. Got a couple of gigs left on this thing. I have got to remove a whole lot of stuff onto external hard drives. I must remember to do that. All these podcasts keep filling up my hard drive fast. And is YouTube removing your replies, Gaz? You know, even me as the channel owner gets comments removed. Did you know that? It's not just you guys that suffer this. And you want to know the irony? My settings are not, there are no words being removed. There's no watchwords. I've got like all security settings off when it comes to like management of words. You've got like options in your channel, and I've specifically turned them all off. There's absolutely no moderation on my channel by YouTube officially, but they still moderate. Even with your settings turned off, YouTube still moderates, and it's annoying. There's no way around it. Yeah, guys, I get you, man. I get you. YouTube is a butt pain engineering system. That's what they're good for, engineering lots and lots of butt pain. But yeah, so the nature of our reality is being facilitated by this perspective, and the perspectives that we hold are shaping our experiences, and this is what we actually associate with. And so when we're associating, we are actually forming a world around us, and we are forming this world based upon these mental criteria that we mentioned. And so we are not in reality just experiencing reality. We are co-creating reality through our experience. So with that in mind, what does it mean when you take a whole lot of words into your mind and allow those words to inform your belief system that restructures your attitude and your perspective and your belief system? And your perspectives, your attitude, and your belief system starts to crystallize in such a way that your experience is now gated within the confines of these systems. And the gated nature of this energetic expression limits the sphere of reality that you can experience. This is why we're not all living in the same world. Some people live in a magical world where they can manifest anything they desire. Other people live in a world where they are trapped. They are trapped in a world, and that's the reality. You can choose to be living in a world where you're trapped, or you can choose to be living in an experience-based reality that is a feedback, a biofeedback loop that is interacting with your deepest unconscious energy flows, and subconsciously that you are creating and facilitating every aspect of your reality. And when you become cognizant, conscious, and aware of this process, you're able to have input into informing how this process manifests your reality. So there's like quite a profound thing to consider. The very nature of reality will be changed by the books that you read. Does that mean that you need to be careful with what books you read, what ideas you take into your unconscious? Because the nature of reality is not as fixed and as crystallized as what we think it is. You read a book, that will change your reality. It could be a positive change. It could be a negative change. It could be a whole lot of positive changes on the surface. I could, in my home, change the layout of my home. I could put in a whole lot of new walls, remove a whole lot of walls, and make my home really, really nice. And on the surface, I've made these amazing changes that are really awesome until there's a big windstorm and the house blows down because I removed structural walls. Right? That can happen. So things aren't always what they seem to be. We might have read a book that seems to be changing our reality for the better, but we just haven't got the proverbial bill yet. And when that proverbial bill lands, then we'll be like, Oh, there were hidden costs. Ah, I didn't know. I didn't see those. Damn, it seemed like such a great idea at the time. This is life. So this is why I always say to people, if you're going to read books, are you coming back in, dear Shinobi? If you have the time, jump in. You're always welcome. Big love, man. This is why I always say to people that it's really important to consider that the books that you read needs to be quarantined behind a firewall. You got to treat it like foreign information from the internet that needs to be thoroughly scanned, and that it may have viruses in it, and that even your virus software may not pick up the viruses. You've got to be really careful about which programs you allow to run on your system, on your computer or your phone or your tablet. It's very much the same with books that we read. Think of the books that you read as installable software into the nature of your reality, and that the books you read will change your reality fundamentally, and you'll suddenly start contemplating which books you should read or not, or how you should read those books. And I don't want to scare people too much about reading books. I just don't think this is something that people usually consider and usually contemplate and equate to the reading of books. Did I see Rebecca's name there? Namaste, dear Rebecca. How are you? Hope you are well. Hope you are thriving. Hope you are swell. Hope you're not driving. Hope you are smiling. Yeah, man. And like Toby was saying, the well, we each have within us a deep well of wisdom. And I like to think of books as debris that we throw into the well of wisdom. So imagine you got this beautiful well, which is a crystal water spring. And that spring is endlessly topping itself up, right? It's a self-propagating underground river that gives you clean, fresh, living, beautiful water. And imagine you decide to urinate in that well, right? Add other fluids to the well. And maybe you throw your dishwater in the well. Maybe you want to get rid of your bath water, and you get rid of your bath water in the well. It starts to accumulate. And then maybe, you don't know what to do with your animal dung, and you throw your animal dung in the well. And you've got old furniture you don't know what to do with, and you throw your old furniture down the well. There will come a point where the well will no longer be functional, right? And so I think of like books as being like debris that we can throw into the proverbial well of human consciousness, and that these ideas and these words can become a limitation to extracting the true living waters of knowledge from within our hearts. And the true living waters within our hearts is an expression of intuition. It's an expression of sensitivity towards that fundamental state of being, which reflects itself as the ego, which is clothed within the substance of the persona and moves around in flesh puppets that we call bodies. And so when we understand these layers and these different levels of being, we're able to appreciate that there is a deep access that we have to the profound knowledge, which is the fundamental substrate upon which reality rests. In Vedic cosmology, this is called the Akasha. In New Age nonsense speak, it's called the Akashic records. The Akashic records. But in real talk, it's called the Akash. And the Akash is not a library of records. It's not some place where all the information is stored. No, the very nature of reality comes from a set of blueprints. And those blueprints are fundamental to all time. And those blueprints that maintain the structure of time are expressing itself here now. The easiest way for me to break this down to you is to say that dimensions. Now, Cosmic and I disagree on this fundamentally. And so Cosmic's not here. So I'll lay it down, and I'll lay it down thick, baby. He thinks that time is some abstract thing, abstract and separate to space. And I'm like, time is not separate to space. Time is space. Space is time. We're living in space-time. The only difference between space and time is dimensional unfoldment. So in order for space to exist, you need to have form. In order for form to exist, you need to have 3 axes. 3 axes means 3 dimensions. So space is a reflection of three-dimensional existence. Do we exist in space? Yes. But do we only exist in space? No. We also exist in time. Time, in order for time to exist, you need a 4th dimension. Time is the 4th dimension. Why is time the 4th dimension? You need another axis that connects one block of space to another block of space, to another block of space, to another block of space, to another block of space. And each of these blocks of space being connected to another block of space, we call a moment, because there is a flow of momentum from one block of space to another block of space, to the next block of space, to the other block of space. And there seems to be a linear progression of flow of momentum through these different blocks of space. How do we understand these blocks of space? There's a 4th trajectory connecting all of these blocks of space, in the same way that there's a 3rd trajectory connecting all of the 2-dimensional planes, from one to the next, 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 and they build upon each other, all these 2-dimensional planes, almost infinitely, until you've got this profound package of 2-dimensional spaces that are packed in to a 3-dimensional space, right? But then in order to get the 4th dimensional space, you need to have the almost infinite 3-dimensional spaces packed in to produce the 4th dimensional space. So that 4th dimension, that 4th axis of movement, I call momentum. Momentum cannot exist in space. Momentum can exist in time, acting upon space, right? Momentum is not a spatial relevance, it's a time-related relevance, because momentum carries from the past to the future. It's time. So that's why we have moments. That's why we experience moments in time, because that is a snapshot of the passing of a momentum from one block to another block. So when we start to appreciate time in such a fashion, we've got to imagine that right here, where I am, there are an almost infinite set of spaces. And those almost infinite set of spaces are connected via a particular pattern. The particular pattern that those spaces align themselves, the time line, is the flow of the momentum. But in order for this timeline, this alignment of different spatial vectors to be an expression of momentum, it has to be particular. In other words, let's say there are trillions and 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 trillions of different spatial potentials right here. Time is like a needle going to stitch together a certain particular aspect of these in a particular line. And we're going to experience this line, which means the Akashic field is that field where all of the spaces exist. I want you to appreciate what Akash means from a Vedic perspective, right? So we have this Akash, and within this Akash is folded an almost infinite number of spatial potentials. And those spatial potentials are unpacked through a 4th dimensional line, which is time, for us to experience. Akasha, however, holds the blueprints for each and every one. What does that mean? That means that the Akasha holds the blueprints for the future, and it holds the blueprints for the present, and it holds the blueprints for the past. It holds the blueprints for any thought that anyone can think, has thought, or will think. It holds the potentials for anything that has happened, is happening, will happen. It holds all of the potentials within this proverbial cosmic egg. And that cosmic egg is the expression of consciousness. Conch being the the seashell, which is a toric field that expresses sound. You can hear the ocean when you listen to it, and you blow it to bring the spirits. So in Vedic cosmology, the conch is really important for your religious practices and your worship. So when we unpack how space and time operates, suddenly we're able to get a real understanding of what Akash is. But if you have a misunderstanding of what time is, you will never fully understand what Akash is. And the Akasha will be a mystery that will need to be put into a context of mere word understandings. You may notice that what I've expressed here is not really a verbal understanding. I may have used words to express it, but it's a pictorial form. You got to experience a cube of space. A space is a cube, right? And that cube moves to another cube, moves to another cube, moves to another cube. So the cube of that space is why time, Saturn, is referenced as being the cube, because it's pulling together all the other faces of all the other cubes in order to manifest this flow of momentum of time. Why is Saturn contraction? The cube's contracting. I have to have a sip. Ah, that's so much better. I was talking my voice dry. But yeah, I think like to understand space, to understand time, and to understand that time is thus the momentum of space in movement, then we can understand why Einstein tried to explain to us that by moving through space faster than light, we can move through time. Why is that? Because the space is made out of light. I want you to consider this. It's all electromagnetism. So it's an electromagnetic field that's expanding and contracting through a toric field, and we are observing these proverbial accidents of causal interaction between different frequencies of the field. And this observation and this experience of this observation we call matter. After we have put our perspectives, ideas, beliefs, and shaped this matter to be in alignment with our inner experience, expectations, and our feelings, and our ideas. So we are quantumly entangled down here, searching for cohesion, you know. And hello, namaste. I hope you're well. Welcome, Karanaya. I hope you are having an absolutely great day. And yeah, I mean, the quantum field is the substrate. So what we speak of when we speak of the quantum field, which is this principle that entangles, is the aether. And the aether is really an emanation, the emanations of the Akasha. So, you know, there's an interesting perspective there. And I think there's something to that. I think the quantum entanglement words and the quantum field words were created by scientists that lacked the authenticity, integrity, and honor to acknowledge that we had for 200 years been denying ether existed, and we had then discovered ether was a real phenomenon. But they didn't have the authenticity. You are chewing cables, buddy. Cable chewing is most certainly not allowed. Most certainly not allowed. Oh, that's a mint. Oh, Chris, daddy's little boy. Yes. Yes. So yeah, I think understanding the nature of Akash, the nature of time and space, will give us an insight into why we have access to all the information that ever is, was, or will be. And we have access to it right now because the very consciousness field that manifests matter holds that information in it. And we are emanations of that consciousness field. And we carry and are informed by the essence of that consciousness field. And so we have the ability to shine our light inwards and rediscover the hidden knowledge and the hidden wisdom and the understanding of this consciousness field. And this is the true esoteric path. This is the true occult path. This is the true path of the mystic. This is the true path of the shaman. But now what we've got is we've got books, right? Got books. Yeah. Now we've got books. The more we allow ourselves to rely upon books, the less we tune into this consciousness field. It's like this. If you start walking with crutches, imagine this. Let's say you start walking with crutches. Let's say you decide that you're going to use a wheelchair from now on to get around. How long will it be until you get entropy in your legs and you are no longer able to walk properly? What do you think? I'd love to get your ideas in the chat. Tell me what you think, people. How long? And if you really want to like go into it after the video, I'd love to hear in the actual comments of the video after the chat, like a long breakdown. If you want to like really go into this, I'd love to hear your ideas and opinions. So why should the body and the consciousness not work in the same way? Right? If you don't use your legs, you will lose them, right? So if you don't use your ability to draw information from the Akashic field, will you lose it? Will that go into entropy? Well, why wouldn't it? What reason is there? What do you guys think? Yeah, I believe it would. I believe not only would it, I believe it has, and I believe it is. And it is doing it because of books. The moment we stop relying upon books to inform us, and we start looking inward, and we start tuning into this natural Akashic field, and allowing ourselves to draw information from the living well of knowledge, which is the nature of ourselves, the basis of this field of consciousness within which we exist, it is only then that we will fully be able to appreciate true knowledge. And so we speak of knowledge as being these crystallized ideas that we've believed, formulated as belief structures within our minds. Though that is not knowledge, that is belief. Knowledge is something that is an experiential path. I always like to consider knowledge as the lovemaking between wisdom and understanding. When understanding opens her legs and she receives the throbbing power of wisdom, and the throbbing power within her, moving rhythmically, brings her to the point that she explodes within herself when wisdom explodes within her. Together, one powerful, igniting, an orgasm of truth. What is put in the womb is the child of knowledge. And this child of knowledge then grows. And wisdom is the sphere of experience, and understanding is the sphere of contemplation. And so when we experience our life, what we actually experience, and when we sit and contemplate our actual experiences, then we put the seed of knowledge within our hearts. And if the contemplation of this experience is bound within a deep meditative and contemplative sphere, then the child of knowledge gets nutrition. And this child of knowledge is then born. And when this child of knowledge is born within us, we are then in a state of knowing. And this is the knowledge that is power, true knowledge. And so gnosis is supposed to be this Christos, the divine child of knowledge that is born by the contemplation, the divine feminine, the mother of the wisdom experience. So the wisdom, the experience of the Father is action related. And our actions produce experience. And the internalization of these actions is the contemplation, conscience. And from conscience and contemplation stems understanding. And understanding is the wife of wisdom. And wisdom and understanding are the parents of knowledge. When we can understand these concepts, to understand that what is above is truly as what is below, then we are ready to start to embrace the understanding of the dimensional spheres within which we exist. And that these dimensional spheres are carrying the expressions of truth within their very structure, within the nature of time and space, is this fundamental truth. The truth is the law, and the law defines everything. Aleister Crowley was completely wrong. He was delusional and he was insane to have ever said, "Do as thou will" is the whole of the law. That's like saying you can go to the toilet and you don't have to wipe. It doesn't matter. Of course it matters. Of course you have to wipe. Don't come and talk nonsense to me. So, the law is much more than just do as thou will. The law is understanding that the wisdom and the actions of what one does needs to be contemplated in order to formulate knowledge. That is the way of magic. The Trinity, the triple goddess, the three fundamental states of alchemy, right? I did this really wonderful little image, and I gotta break it out, ladies and gentlemen. I am so proud of my image. I love this picture. If I cry, please don't hold it against me. This picture is so beautiful. It makes me want to cry. It could bring tears to my eyes. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. There is my picture par excellence, I think. At least it's my attempt. So I have broken down the top. The truth sayer covers the chakra, Sahasra, Ashna. That's what we call the third eye. A very bad name, third eye. But anyway, we'll allow the new ages to leave their poisonous, toxic words. Visuddhi, that's the glands of the thyroid and the parathyroid. Anahata, the thymus. The Manipura, the pancreas, the stomach. The Svadhisthana, the sacral plexus, and the glands related there, urinary function. The Muladhara, that would be the prostate. And and just the same with like Manipura, the solar fire, it's also related to the adrenals, for example. The triple burner. The triple burner is related. It runs up this channel, and that is your fight or flight in Taoist Chinese medicine. So here we've got like the chakras, and here we have the 7 principles: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. Here we have the qualities of mental. These are the construction elements. These 7 principles manifest in our consciousness as these: inspiration, intuition, memory, imagination, will, desire, sensation. And in the etheric, it is restructured. And the sacred geometry restructures the qualities. So here we have the astral, and here we have the etheric. Notice what I've done here is I've got the 3 fundamental spheres: the shamanic divine world, the shamanic middle world, and the shamanic underworld. And this underworld represents the principle of power. The middle world represents the principle of wisdom. The principle of love. And the higher world represents the principle of wisdom. And so you got the blue, which is the mental, the yellow, which is energetic, the energy, which is our feeling, and the red, which is the desire-driven physicalizing of the final cause and effect, manifesting the final polarity of masculine and feminine that becomes a unified experience of this physical reality. So you see these three spheres, they are fundamental here, right? Totally fundamental. And you can see here within the higher sphere, you got Kether, Chokmah, and Bina. Bina represents form. Chokmah represents the potential. Kether is the unifying unity, the monad, if you will. And so this potential is what we experience. The potential is the wisdom, right? Because the potential is what we experience, and the form is what we contemplate. The word template is related to form. In order to produce form, you need a template. So contemplation is understanding form, right? Experience is how we are able to relate the potentials that are coming into being. And the unification of these two, right, is what we're talking about when we're talking about this womb being full. Notice 4 becomes the point where the Maslow in the Kabbalah creates the macrocosm, because now form is becoming space. So Chesed or Jadula in the Kabbalah is related to space, and the space is the space of, potential, that expansiveness that is space. We then look at 5 representing the limitations upon space, and it starts to differentiate. And so Mercury then produces the differentiations between the spatial field, and we then reflect this as harmony. So 6 becomes the harmony. Now 1 is unity, and unity is at home in harmony. Harmony is when we have unified these experiences, right? When we have taken the potential and it's within form, and we've understood how the potential and the form are unified in space. And the space is then limited. And these limitations are expressed as a unity. We then have to apply harmony to that equation to be able to experience that profound unity of these principles. So harmony then becomes an important element, which is the divine child that we were talking about. Knowledge lives within the heart of 6, right? And 6 then also is an important junction between the second sphere, which is the sphere of energy, and the third sphere, which is the sphere of materializing reality, or the principles that are producing the materializing in concrete reality. The concrete reality is when all 3 of these spheres are bound together. But the principles of coming into being is what we speak of as Yetzirah in the Kabbalah. And the Yetzirah represents this. What are you chewing? He's chewing with the desk. Okay. It represents this most fundamental process. And so we speak of the world of formation as being Yetzirah, where the Bria is the world of creation. The energetic world is the world of creation. The words that they give you in the Kabbalah are wrong. I want you to appreciate that for a moment. You will not understand what these principles are if you follow the books on Kabbalah, because you will not get it. You can only discover this by contemplating it for yourself. Understanding how these 3 elements fit together is the key to all mystic paths. If you've understood how the Shashumna is an expression of this yellow sphere, right? And it's an expression of this red sphere. And that this Shashumna, which is the blue, is expressing poles of itself. in order for these two spheres to come into being. So you could say that the blue sphere has to take something out of itself for the yellow sphere to come into being. And what is left over when that has been removed is projected to become the red sphere. So the red sphere is everything the yellow sphere isn't. The yellow sphere is everything the red sphere isn't. They're complementary, but together they are the blue sphere. And when these two spheres are harmonized and unified, like we were talking about 6 and 1, you get the formation of the guf. And this is then the sphere of physical reality below, as the blue, the fundamental causal field of reality above. And now, where is Akasha? Akasha, look on the right. You see Visuddhi chakra, vibration? That vibrational field is the Akash that we were talking about. And so to understand that that vibrational field is the Akash is to understand that sound is the structure of being. Now, I discovered this at the bottom of a swimming pool when I was leaving the world. You don't worry, there are easier ways. You don't have to go underwater and lungs explode and go through all of that and like hold thumbs and hope you manage to come back to the world. You don't have to do that to experience this, to understand it. You can contemplate it. What am I going to do with you? Huh? You should tell these little tweety bums being a naughty. I want to chew the cables. He wants to chew the cables. He's a little naughty little goth and he wants attention. Kiss it. You should kiss it. No, I'm not kissing you. You won't let me choose cables. Okay, I'll tell you what. Daddy's going to let you go on the floor for a little while. Go play with the dogs, okay? I want you to go and be the dog's problem. There they are. They're both there. Come play with them. Yeah, so understanding these three fundamental principles will give you an insight to understand how the 7 principles are drawn from these 3 and how the 9 principles are an expression of the 7 principles and how the 7 principles become the mazloth or the field of 12 principles. And so this is like rather sort of fundamental to understanding the mysteries. If you've got an understanding of the Kabbalah, it will make sense in terms of shamanism. If you have an understanding of the Vedic knowledge, it will make sense in terms of Kabbalism. If you have an understanding of the Taoist knowledge, it will make sense out of both of these. But you need to have a working system of understanding that is able to comprehend. Most people think that all of these different systems are living in vacuums and bubbles and that they're all separate. No, they are all part of a single system. But only one with experience can actually perceive and go. So you will not get this from books. Books will tell you all sorts of nonsense. Books would years in, the birds. Oh my God. Birds. Wow. Birds. Birds are incredible. Little Agarthan is continually inspiring me. He's cheeky. They're very intelligent, hey? We don't realize how intelligent birds are until we spend like a lot of time with them. And rabbits. And, I think like we're sort of trapped within this paradigm of our minds. And if we want to become free of the cube of this box that represents our minds, there's only one way to become truly free, and that is to embrace a deeper state of experience. And that deeper state of experience has got to be opening ourselves to nature, opening ourselves to the animal kingdom. Do you want to learn about the etheric plane? Do you know where I've learned a lot about the etheric plane? Sitting watching the sea on a rock by the water, and the water's right just below me, and watching the patterns on the water move and watching the light of the sunrise coming over the water and watching it every day so that I see how the nuances of wind and the wind's talking to me and the sun is changing its frequencies and the color bouncing off the water is changing its rays, and these different rays are telling me different things. And then the geometry on the water and the sacred imagery that you see, it will blow your mind. And when you've been contemplating this geometry that you see Yeah, Toby, completely. When you see that geometry, then when you go into the penguin sanctuary and you walk through and there's plants, you see it in the flowers, you see it in the plants, you see it in the trees, you see the way the trees grow. Oh, you're reflecting the geometry I saw in the water. Uh-huh. Then you look at the clouds and you see the clouds reflecting the geometry. Then you look within your own unconscious when you're in a state of deep silent reverie and you see the patterns in your own consciousness. You go, wow. So the same things I'm seeing in the flowers, in the trees, in the wind, in the clouds, in the sea, in the water, I'm seeing the same thing inside myself. And you start to notice, wow, that is a revelation of correspondence. You go like, wow. So where's correspondence? Correspondence right up here, Ajna chakra. That is the opening of your Ajna chakra. That's another name for the Ajna chakra is the Guru chakra, the chakra of inner learning. And when you reach into that profound level of consciousness, you're starting to draw knowledge directly from the Akashic field and bring it in through the Akashic field. In other words, the field of consciousness that is matter, because we like to think of consciousness as being something separate out there, abstract. No, consciousness exists, and within consciousness, consciousness is molded in certain ways, and within the heart of that consciousness field, the mold is what we call matter. But it's still just consciousness, right? I want you to imagine a pool of water, and at the bottom of that pool of water, all the sediment is collapsed, has collected. But if you go to the bottom of that pool and you're looking at the sediment, you are still in the water. That sediment is not separate outside of the water. That sediment is the particles in the water that are separating from the water to collect within the water at the bottom of the water, inside the pool, part of the pool, not separate to the pool. That's matter. And in the same way, consciousness, you have matter collecting within the heart of consciousness. And we experience this matter as physical reality. So, when we start to recognize all of this, we can really quite clearly put into perspective that these ideas that we've got in our minds are completely delusional and distract us from absolute truth and reality. Hey, brother Shinobi, it's lovely to have you back, brother. Always lovely to have you back.
Hey, man. Yeah, you were talking about something really profound there. Do you remember? I think I sent you a voice note a few weeks ago saying that when I was lying in bed at night, I can see these kind of they look like stingrays, kind of like moving around in my vision. So I do that quite often. At night, I'll be lying in bed. There's like a little bit of light in the room. To be honest with you, I'd love to go be somewhere like where there's no light, where it's just pure, in a sarcophagus, basically. I'd love to have a sarcophagus. I love it because I imagine that's what they were used for, to kind of tap into the world spirit, the all mind, and you can probably hear the blood flowing through your body, and you'd be able to tune into where needs healing as well. But yeah, when I'm lying in bed, I look up at the ceiling, not looking at anything in particular, but yeah, I can see these kind of stingray type beings, and it's like what you're describing. It's a way to kind of describe it is if you're looking at a pool of water, and it's the light that shines on the water. It has this kind of ripple of this kind of like coming and going. And it's kind of, when I'm looking up at the ceiling, it's like I'm underwater watching this water, like this wave, and it's nighttime and there's no light, but I can see lights, and these lights turn into like beings, which you said are called the undine, which signals to me undying, like the undying, the infinite. And then it's kind of described a bit like a disco ball as well. If you look at in between, I see it in between leaves, this kind of like shimmering, and I've noticed that actually a lot. Actually, just random places, I'll see this kind of. It's kind of like a. I've always felt it's the etheric wind, if that's the correct term. Like it's kind of this like a mirage. Like, you know, you have like heat in the distance. It creates this kind of like, I guess it's a smokeless fire, like plasma. This kind of etheric wind, which is everywhere, and like, that's potentially the all mind, the all spirit. It's this kind of wave. It's both like, it's kind of air and fire, but water as well, and it has it's this the what's called dark matter, probably, like it's darkness, but light comes from the dark. When you look into, for example, I'm using at nighttime when there's barely any light. In the dark, I see lights, and these lights are these waves. But also in the daytime, you can see this kind of ripple of reality, these waves. And yeah, it's awesome. I think it's something that we don't really perceive too often. We're too focused on other things, you know, like technology or this or that, or moving from one place to the other. But it's the in between. I think the in between things, the dreaming in which we're in. The dream is the in between, and that's something that I've been really drawn to recently, because, like, Hecate, for example, is the keeper of keys. What do keys do? Keys unlock doorways. There's doorways in our psyche, which is dormant energy, which is ways how we can kind of tap in and tune in and be a channel for the world's soul. And Hecate is also the, like, guardian of thresholds, of the tricross, liminal spaces, which this kind of, to view the this etheric wind or field, you can see it in the in between, which is really interesting.
Yeah, brother. Totally, man. I was trying to share something Tomro had said, but it's not sharing. Is it not sharing? Why is it not sharing? Whose idea was? Oh, it is sharing. Okay, good, good. It's just my thing is up to no good. Yeah, you know, I think like there's a lot to this, to what you're saying, and you know, this chain of life. Like, we think of matter as being inanimate, and we've really got to snap out of this nonsense. This is because of reading books. If we hadn't been reading books, we would never have come up with this nonsense about matter being inanimate. This is book nonsense, you see? Take the books. You know, if there was one good thing the Catholics ever did, don't any of you ever bloody quote me on this. There was one good thing the Catholics did, was to burn the books, but they did it for the wrong reason, okay? And they were doing it in a devious, and they were burning the wrong books. I think you need books. You need books for, like, how to build a toilet, right? That's what books are good for. Books teach, like, you want to remember practical earthbound things? Books, great. How to build a house? A book with pictures, with graphs, with mass, with the specifics of the materials. Excellent. You want a book for how to for what food to eat? Brilliant. So that you know what foods have got what nutrients. Excellent. Just as a table. You want a book for medicine, like these herbs are useful for this? That's great. But when the books are teaching you subjective information, and this is really what I'm talking about when I'm talking about books, you know, spirituality, philosophy, religion, you know, the nature of gnosis, all this nonsense that we see now, this misunderstanding of Gnostic knowledge, which is obviously Gnosticism is, they're trying to demonize Gnosticism. Oh, Gnosticism is about hating the world and just escapism. That's not really the message of Gnosticism exactly. They're actually trying to explain to you what is the nature of this physical reality that we are co-creating and how we have demented it, but that we can change the nature of reality with our thoughts. This is a different story. And that's the true like spirit of Gnosticism, but you won't find that in books, because the people that edit and want the books written have their agenda. So they're using the books to school us like fish. And this chain of life that connects everything to everything else, right? And a lot of people have an issue with this, understanding this unity, because once again, there were books written, and in the books, oneness was mentioned. And the oneness that was mentioned in the books was turned into a circus performance. And the circus performance of so-called oneness, as it's understood in books, New Age books, has caused people to reach for buckets. They need vomit buckets when they read this nonsense. And so now they were like, let's quickly get that baby out there with the bathwater. Let's just throw it all out there. But there is a unity. There is a unity. It's not oneness. That word is being corrupted. There is no such word as oneness. It's ridiculous. It's bad grammar. It's bad English.
Well,
yeah.
Could the oneness be described as the first Hermetic principle of the all is mind, which means that all is spirit, which means that everything is a spirit, the world soul, but we're individual souls in this spirit, and that spirit is the etheric wind, or that you can see it. We were talking about that a minute ago. Could that be the oneness that people mean? I mean, like, things have been flipped and inverted. I see that people could say, oh yeah, we're all just part of one thing. It's like a yes and no answer. It's there is one mind. Like, our mind's not here, our mind's out there, our body's in our mind, our body, we are in the mind. Is that what people mean when they say oneness? But it's important to remember that we have our own unique frequencies, our own unique souls. Could that be what people mean? Or is that should like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different books that have different versions of this meaning, but like what you're saying makes sense. I think of it as unity, that everything is unified through a web of life, and the web of life connects everybody to everything, and everything to everybody, and everybody, every animal, every microbe, every atom, everything, is all part of a single field of consciousness. So yeah, Shinobi, the first Hermetic principle is just one big field of consciousness, and everything is an emanation of that field of consciousness. And the thing is that people then use the word oneness as a replacement for personal responsibility. And I think that's what makes people like Cosmic want to vomit, because he's right to say, like, pass me the nearest bucket, I'm ready. I cannot digest this nonsense, give me a bucket. I agree with him, but I also see that there is a fundamental unity, and that fundamental unity is the substrate of creation, and creation is this field of consciousness that's defining and differentiating itself, and that this is an expression of the first principle of Hermes. And what you're seeing in the etheric is a reflection of the astral, and what we see in the astral is a reflection of the etheric, and bound through the astral and the etheric, this is a reflection of the causal, and the causal is a reflection of the greater reality. So absolutely, and that there is a chain of life that connects all of these things through a fractal expression of life, and that fractal expression of life is within every aspect of every aspect. And so yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think what's happened is that rather than people being like, the word unity has been turned into uniformity. Like, rather than us like being like having unity, it's more of like this uniformity. So rather than us being united with a common goal, which is spiritual growth, instead what's happened is it's been inverted. And this goes quite deep into what we were talking about yesterday as well, with Rupus Negro and Black Rock and currency and energy siphoning and infiltration of, or extraction of, the human soul, and the realm of shells and Ahriman. Because it's like, rather than us having unity and all kind of growing together, it's more of like an inversion, that we all kind of have this uniformity, that we're all the same. It's like there's no colors, it's all gray. And you can see that in architecture. Of course, the formless is reflected into the form, so we can see this happening, that it's the uniformity is gray. You can see it in all dystopian movies where they show this, where people are tethered to technology. It's gray. Even the sky is gray. You know, so that represents not being able to see beyond, because as within, so without. So the uniformity is gray, and then unity is us, is humanity, the human, sharing our unique light signature, light codes into the world, and us recognizing that in each other, opposed to us all being the same thing, which is a grey, basically. Perhaps that's what happened to the greys. Perhaps that is the greys. That's what they are. That happened on one timeline, and now they're trying to fix it. Whatever. Who knows?
Yeah, that's totally interesting. You know, and that notion of who these greys are. I mean, we can speculate, but I think that makes the most sense. And I've also been hearing that narrative for a long time, and imagining how this universe, like, to see it as it's bound, these three things, these three principles, and how they fit together and come apart when we leave this world. It gives me an insight that it makes the most sense what you're saying. Time is not as linear as what we think it is. Most certainly is not. It's definitely upstreaked. And this chain of life that you are seeing, these sylphs. Here's an idea, Toby. When you're seeing these sylphs and these beings, right, they seem like they're separate to you, don't they? Right? But are they really? Are they really that separate to you, or are they a part of you?
I see them as well, yes and no. So I just have to put my phone to charge, because it always runs out about this time, especially streaming. Is that charging? So I kind of see them as they're as separate, but also at the same time, I don't see any separation between anything. They're outside of my body, but also my mind isn't in here. My mind is out there. I'm very much connected to the what I think is the world soul, or the spirit of the world. That's why sometimes I find it difficult empathizing with people, because if I was to do that, I'd just be drained. Because how can you empathize with everybody and every single person. What I have empathy for is the world's soul, and this is why I'm so passionate about finding what is true and sharing my truth, because I think that is what heals the world's soul and in turn people, because we're all connected to the world's soul. So everything I see and hear, even like evil, that needs the greatest healing of all. But other beings and these like stingray things, they're outside of my body, but it's all connected. So kind of yes and no. But why did you bring that up?
Just because, like, those beings are like a chain, and you mentioned the empathy, and that's very interesting. I think there is like personal empathy we're talking about, which is a very personal thing, isn't it, between one human being and one human being. But you can also empathize with the group as one thing. I think empathy can't be more than one-on-one. The moment you try and empathize with more than one-on-one, you're lost. Like it's like having a threesome, man. Like, I've never had one. I can't imagine having one. Like, I don't think it would rock my world. I mean, I've had like groups of women try and say, "Hey, we're going to take you home with us and show you, like, turn you into a real man." I'm like, "No, thanks. Don't need that." British women are like that, by the way. They'll walk right up to you in a place and say, "Me and my friend were looking at you and we thought we want to take you home." I was like, "What do you mean? What do I look like? A dog, a puppy or something?" "Nah, we were going to take you home and show you a good time, like." I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm married, got a girlfriend. She's not here, but she's like 6 foot tall and she's built like this. She's going to clobber you, So, but I think it's the same idea. Like a sexual union has to be between two people, right? Otherwise, there's a fundamental quality of integrity and realism and that synergetic reflection between the two lost. So I agree with you. We can't empathize with everybody, but what we can empathize with is the world soul as a single unity. And that world soul sort of, I think it actually defines us more than we know. I think we can't help empathizing with the world soul because we will act it out in one way or another. But the reason I asked you that was I was just sort of triggering you to ask yourself that when you're looking at them and communicating with them next time, to think like which part of reality isn't you, if that makes sense. Like, which part of the reality that I experience is not me. It's quite an interesting way of looking at the world.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think that people have been disconnected from the world soul. I think this this kind of ties into I guess it ties into the eighth sphere and Araman as well. People not being connected to the earth, people being more connected to material stuff rather than the world soul, and people kind of being, what's the word, like sort of, I guess, like blocked in, like via trauma and stuff. We build up walls, and we can see that between other humans as well, more so now than ever, really, that we want to build up walls via our trauma, so we feel disconnected from other humans. And yeah, with empathy in the world soul, it's because I've always tried to find the essence of things, and with empathy and empathizing with people, like, it's not that I do, but I know that some people get really upset over like small stuff, which is, they have big hearts, but at the same time, you can kind of drown if you're like so empathetic with every single person. And what good does it do? Like, my point in saying this is that, because we had a conversation at the round table about this a while ago, and I didn't articulate it very well, is that with the world soul, if we all tuned into that's how we heal people, because this Wetiko mind virus, which leaks into people, stems from somewhere else, and it's the world soul that needs healing. And what's happened is that people have been disconnected from the earth and nature and their core. So we're just kind of a bit in limbo with no guidance of where to go and what to do. And it's about you have to be very open to connect to the world soul. And when you're closed, you're not, it's a false protection, because I think that when your mind's closed, that's how things enter. Like, I made a rap about it a while ago. Can't remember it, but it's something to do with like when your mind's closed, like it's from like the demon's perspective. It's like when your mind's closed, that's how we enter. Because if you have an open mind, things come in and things go out. You have a flow, you become a channel. But if you're closed, things will find their way into you. That's not you, because we remember our mind is outside of our brain. So if you have a closed circuit, that things will find their way into you and channel through you. If you're not a channel for your higher self, your potential, or the world soul, whatever, there'll be a vacancy which will be filled by, there's a sign saying self for hire. So you're actually putting a sign out that says, a sigil out that says, I'm not channeling my higher self. I'm here closed off. The shop's boarded up. Someone else can come and fill the place. And that's a higher self, a self that you've hired. And then that is in turn making way for the artificial, the AI. So people seek validation with this artificial rather than using their brain, the antenna that we have, to tether ourselves to the world soul. I hope that makes sense. Because I love playing with words, as everyone knows. So with the higher self, you flip it. It could be a self for hire. Like, you imagine the subconscious being the backstage, and then imagine a seat being in your brain. If you're this ties into self-driving cars as well. So we have self-driving cars emerging, and people need to remember that the car KA is the is related to the etheric body, the etheric double, I believe. It's the vital essence or life force. This is our life force, but it's also the life force of the world. And this ties into navigation as well, because these self-driving cars don't have steering wheels or pedals. So you can't stop, you can't go, you can't steer, you're just an autopilot. And what's happening is that people's energy, the chi, the vital essence, life force, the etheric body, the spirit, which guides us, the mind, the world soul. People are this is what the realm of shells is, I believe, and the eating of Sophia, the eighth sphere, the eating of our wisdom, the extraction of our wisdom, the gaslighting, the spiritual alchemy, gaslighting of our wisdom, so that we don't tune into the wisdom of our hearts, the wisdom of the earth, and that our vessel is being guided by another, like we become self-driving cars. So what's reflected in the matter is also with us too, and I can't help but see that, and that we can become like a ship without a crew. Like, all ships need a crew, And the thing is, with our ship, our vessel, our crew is other people, and more importantly, the world's soul. Like we can be guided when we have a.
Did Toby just freeze, or is that me freezing? Toby, are you with me? Okay, I see the chat moving, so I'm guessing that Toby's internet froze. Okay, well, here we are. Maybe his battery's gone low. But yeah, I was totally seeing what Toby was saying. It makes sense, dear brother, if you see this retrospectively or if you pop back in. You know, the idea of self-driving cars as a metaphor is quite a beautiful one. I love that, especially when we look at the idea of AI, right? Artificial intelligence. I think artificial intelligence is this human equivalent to self-drive cars that Toby was talking about, and that books, when it comes to like real intel and knowledge and wisdom of sacred and spiritual and philosophical things, can become a pathway towards generating a personal artificial intelligence. Because like we were saying, true intelligence is tuning into the cosmic web of creation. Welcome back, dear Cosmic. I mean, I was just saying Cosmic Web. Welcome back, dear Shinobi. I was just saying, and I'll repeat it quickly, that AI intelligence, I think, is the equivalent to your self-driving cars, and that we create our web of belief based upon the education and the books we read and the ideas that we inform ourselves with, and that becomes an artificial knowledge, an artificial intelligence that will shape our reality, because it's not coming from within us. You know, it's not originally deciphered. But yeah, continue, dear brother. You were busy saying when you dropped off.
Yeah, my phone ran out of battery. I was having a bit of a ramble rant there. But yeah, I think I finished what I was trying to say. In essence, that the one of the most powerful tools we have is, in my understanding, is connecting these patterns or these words, like car, and then knowing that a car is something we drive, and also a car is something that we use to drive our vessels, like it's the life force or spirit. And so I think that when we can kind of understand these words and kind of see things happening in matter and how it also ties in with the psyche as well, we can kind of see beyond, like, what we can be a few steps ahead of what's going on. What I mean by that is, with self-driving cars, is what's going on our car, our vital essence, our life force, is that on the verge of being self-driven, and has it been happening already for a while? I would say so. But it's very interesting to kind of see those connections, and then how it ties into the Akashic field as well, and are false memories being put into people. Like we see like knowledge, you know, so-called knowledge, like on Google and stuff, hiding things, AI lying to people. But like, that's material, that's matter. That beyond that is the formless, is the thoughts, is the thoughts around us. Apple AirPods have a patent to map the human brain. There's been patents since the 70s about altering human consciousness via radio waves. Could false memories be put into people? And the reason I mention that is because it ties into the car, self-driving cars, the Akashic field, and people sort of tapping into things. Like, what are they tapping into? I think, the Akashic Field or Akashic Records or whatever it's called. I was having a conversation with someone earlier here at work, and it was about what were we talking about? Yeah, that the Library of Alexandria, no knowledge can be destroyed. Basically, that's my point. That no, if books are burnt, if AI is lying to us, stuff like that, if things are covered up, what happens with knowledge is it's before it's written down, it starts off as the world soul, the all spirit, the all mind. That's where it comes from, the formless before its form. And if we understand how it morphs, how it changes, like the magic, the malleable, what we were talking about earlier with the past, present, and future, and the weird and the well, and finding the well inside ourselves. From this well, the memory, the light which is carried by the water, the light which is in the water, the light being the lightberry or library, this field contains everything. And if we're able to tune into that, we can sort of weave the thread of the past, present, and future. Even though information and books have been burnt, people have forgotten, but I think that's how we remember. But what I feel happening is that there's a kind of they're trying to create, you can view these people as trolls, like dark magicians, whatever. They're trying to create a wedge between us and this Akashic field by this morph, by this manipulation, by mapping the human brain. There's no coincidence that they're trying to recreate the human brain with AI. Why would they do that? They should be making AI as some kind of something different to humanity. Instead, they're trying to create it the same and turn it into this oracle, so that rather than people tuning into the world soul, they're tuning into this artificial. But perhaps it starts with people typing on the computer, asking questions. But what if they somehow manage to leak this artificial into the Akashic field, so that we have to become a bit smarter, a bit wiser, a bit cleverer on to what we're channeling, and more importantly, who we're channeling. Are we channeling our higher self? Are we channeling malevolent beings, or are these actually little like tricksters or deceptors and stuff? This is why I've never trusted people who channel, apart from Cosmic. Like I love Cosmic, I really like him. I've always been skeptical about channelers, but now that I know Cosmic, I know who he is. But whenever I've heard people channeling, I've always thought they're so full of shit. People who do it online, who are like, this being says this. It's like, who are you talking to? Like, I've always thought, like, tap into the world soul, tap into your higher self. Like, as far as I'm concerned, we're all channelers. We can all. That's what we are. Vortex is a channel, is a portal. Our mind's a portal, and when we tap into that, we bring things through. So when people are channeling other beings, I'm like, okay, other beings. And I guess this ties into what you were saying earlier. Like, are these? I think you call them sylphs. I've never heard that before, but are they me, or are they different? And I mean, when people say I'm channeling these beings, it's like, but they're a part of you. Can't you just say I'm channeling? Why does it have to be I'm channeling these beings or external? No, you're just connected with the world soul, or you're connected to other dimensions, which is your own, which is the mind of the die is to change, or like multiple, or God, Dale, die, and meant is mind. You're just opening your mind and connected to your core. So I think that people, I've always been skeptical. That's my point, of people saying I'm channeling these beings. It's like, well, you're probably just connected to the world soul, or to your core, is my point.
Totally, man. Like, to summarize that as a metaphor, don't drink out of the toilet. Make sure you're drinking clean water. Because they are trying to connect our wastewater toilet systems with our drinking water. Basically, and they're actually literally trying to do that, aren't they? The Shinobi's battery crashed again. I see him sitting there frozen. Yep, I think Shinobi must have disconnected his plug from his charger. It happens. We'll see if he's back. But yeah, I think we're getting to 3-hour point. I think the last thing that Shinobi said is probably like a really good place to leave this, you know. The idea that these AI systems can be integrated to the world soul. I think this is a real thing to consider. Like we've looked at this from different perspectives before, but basically this idea is a theme that I think we need to be conscious of, and that these AIs can also be channeling particular beings from that realm of world soul, particular personas and personalities, particular beings from the 8th sphere that have particular agendas, and can be imprinting upon the world soul. Why not? It can imprint upon the physical. It should be able to imprint upon the other layers. So this is definitely something to consider, is the spiritual element of an AI system. It is, at the end of the day, an electromagnetic highway of information, which is what our energetic body is. It's how our brain ends up processing the information, not that differently to the AI systems, hardware at least, that is required for it to run. So there's definitely something in this. We should definitely consider this and keep this in perspective. I think it's probably a really great place to Shinobi's here. Maybe he was going to finish what he was saying.
My phone ran out of battery again, so I'm not sure how long you're gonna be around for, but I'm just gonna let it charge.
Carry on, brother.
Well, no, I'm just gonna let my phone charge for a little bit, and I'll jump back on in like 10 minutes or so.
I was going to sort of call it, because we've been running for 3 hours, and I figured, but like maybe we can do another live.
Sounds good, man. Maybe. Yeah.
But I love what you were saying about the imprinting, and I think there's definitely a psycho-spiritual relationship between AI and the other side of existence. I think that's definitely something to be aware of. Like, I think beings can use AI systems to interact with the world, and I think AI systems can load information into the spiritual and load information from the spiritual to the physical from that conduit of intelligence, because it's not that different to the human consciousness, system. Dear Howard, thank you very much. And if you got a few last words to say, Toby, throw it on the table if you can. I know your system is you got to be careful because you can't unplug your phone. But if you got last words to say.
No, this has been a great conversation today. It's just a shame my phone keeps turning off. But yeah, it's been a great show, and the chat's been really lively as well. It's good to see everyone like commenting stuff in the chat. And yeah, I think with this, I mean, I look forward to the next show we do about the Rupus Negro, Black Rock, the Axis Mundi and stuff, because I think that's a topic which ties in everything. Basically, we didn't even talk about Black Rock, the corporation, the corpse operation, but really looking forward to that, because it ties into the story of Lord of the Rings as well, to do with Sauron and Ahriman, and this energy which, because Silas did a show actually the evening after we did ours, and it was I think him and a few of his mates or one of his friends had a 6-hour conversation the day before. So it's funny, we look like tuned into like the same thing. But it's interesting with the story of Sauron, like sort of being slain and then turning into this formless thing which wants to come back into matter, because we kind of see this happening now with this kind of AI artificial sort of leaking into this realm, and that there's an energy that wants to come into matter and it wants to use human bodies as vessels, but to get into us it needs to penetrate our etheric body, our etheric field, which is around us, but also perhaps it's the earth's the earth's atmosphere. It is earth into us. It needs to penetrate the atmosphere, the world soul, and this is what this energy crisis is it's really our inner G crisis, our inner gnosis, our interconnected with the world soul that people call God. And at first that needs to be destroyed. We need to be disconnected to the world, so we're all kind of individuals. They do this by dividing us, like by gender, by race, by the money, everything. Division is the division, is the 33, the di gamma, changing our vision, so that we all don't have a unified vision of what we could be as a collective, as a world, as the world soul, and kind of drawing this power into matter. So I'm looking forward to going deeper into that with you, into like black rock, currency, and DNA, spark, all of that, because I've got a lot of stuff I wrote down that from Silas's conversation about Sauron and Lord of the Rings. And I was like, this is what we were talking about, and how it ties into like Draco and how that links to the dragons as well. So yeah, man, perhaps next Tuesday or Wednesday we could do that. But I'll be on the round table tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, brother. I was just thinking to just flash one quick image. I just thought it might be relevant because it gives us an idea. So today is a number 5 day, which I think is quite important. We've been talking about how information, right, and communication, which is what rules the sphere of number 5. So we can think of 5 as being relevant in this way. And in fact, if you add up all of the numbers, there's different ways of doing it, but I like to keep it as simple as possible, to think of them as group numbers. So I like to think of it as you know, as the 10th day of the 4th month of the 20th century of the 26th year. And when we add those groups together, we end up with the number 50, right? Which is pretty cool. Sorry, did I say 50? I meant number 60, number 5 day. It's a 6 day today. So tomorrow, because it's 46 plus 14, which is 60. Tomorrow will be a 61 day. So today we're in the day of Venus. And Venus is, just to be clear, related to this field of vibration, right? And so the vibrational field, which is very much related to your Visuddhi chakra, is very related to Venus. Just heads up, something to think about. So when we put that into perspective, today's idea of Venus represents the Merkaba and the way in which the structure is put together. Tomorrow will be a 7 day, will be a mystic day. So to try and see how today and tomorrow fit together will sort of reflect maybe the topic of tomorrow's conversation. And I think we will be able to get tomorrow's conversation to succinctly represent Neptune and the South Node, the number 7, and tie this in to what we've been talking about today. So we'll be looking at what we've been discussing now, but on a more personal level, I think, maybe, and more as it relates to the spiritualization process, that path inwards. We'll have to figure out exactly like how that will fit, but it just makes sense to me that there should be a succinct connection between today's conversation so that it succinctly becomes tomorrow's conversation. How's that sound, Shinobi, if you're there? Hope you're hearing.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, sounds good. So
yeah,
it's kind of like today we're talking
so
about...
we'll sort of continue this conversation.
Yeah, so
just
like
to the next...
The theme was books, which kind of is like box, because that kind of ties into Pandora's box. Pandora opening the box, perhaps looking into books, sharing the knowledge, opening the box, letting the things out, letting the light out, and also the demonization of Pan as well. That whole gaslighting there of because what's in the box is matter, is nature, and when you're open to it, then you can kind of that is tuning into all things, I guess. But my point is that today was about books and words and stuff, which is like kind of the box, books, and the word is the weird. And then, of course, the box relating to Saturn's cube as well. So I'm sure there'll be lots of threads to tie in there. And Neptune being, is it with dreams? Because there was a Saturn-Neptune conjunction recently, which is interesting. So that's to do with bringing our dreams into matter, into structure, crossing boundaries, crossing the boundary of space-time, I guess. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Totally, brother. And I suppose the number 7, where the number 6 is very much related to finding the harmony and knowledge. Number 6 is related to knowledge too, in a big way. Like Kartakaya in Vedic cosmology is the Chemukhi, 6-mukhi Rudraksha. I don't wear Kartakaya. I used to wear some 6-mukhi. I've got some 4-mukhi here. 4 is like the crystallized knowledge. 6 is how that knowledge is getting expressed harmonically. The act of expressing that knowledge, the communication of that knowledge is 5. 8 is where that knowledge is dynamically absorbed and reflected and put into context. 9 is where it is like a movement and an action that becomes the beginning of a new cycle as 9 becomes 1. So yeah, I think like the 7 is like the symbolic. So we'll be looking at like maybe more like the way art affects us. You see, there's other forms of information being stored, isn't there? Words is one form. Now, what's the form that goes deeper into the heart? It's pictures, symbols, feeling related emotion. So yeah, something along those lines, I think. But the same idea, just changing context. Like how pictures inform us. There's gonna be a lot to talk about there because the media is full of pictures. Memes is a big part of that, how memes shape the cultural narrative, and so yeah, man. Otherwise, to the rest of you, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I certainly did. It was a lot of fun. Blessings to dear Shinobi, and blessings to dear TallTree. I hope you guys are both going to have an absolutely fabulous, fantasticular day. Blessings to all of you in the chat. Take it easy. Keep smiling. Just keep fighting the good fight. Push that ball up the hill until you're on top of the hill. And then roll it down the hill. Do it all over again. Meaning of life and all of that. Big love, dear brother. Big love to all of you. Om Shanti.
Big love to everyone in the chat as well. See you soon, man. Bye.
Om Shanti. Only a pleasure. Only a pleasure. See you guys tomorrow. 12 p.m. EST time and 5 p.m. UK London time. Big love. So New York time 12 p.m. London time 5 p.m. Om Shanti.